Chapter 30-93. This flame demon emperor could clearly sense a terrifying aura coming from Yi Shiwen's body, which gave off an extremely dangerous feeling. So what if I am? Yi Shiwen had a calm smile on his face. This is a flame demon emperor. I didn't expect to see such a creature here. Isn't it supposed to be in the outer domain of the Far West? The outer domain referred to by the Fortune Divine Dynasty was extremely vast, and the Stormy Sea region was merely a part of it. Apart from a Stormy Sea region, there was also an extremely vast outer domain. The Flame Demon was an extremely terrifying creature that only existed in the Far West region. The best of the Flame Demons could even break through to become an Emperor-level creature. Even among the many outer domain creatures, they were considered to be at the top. A race that could give birth to an Emperor-level creature was the royal race among the outer domain creatures. However, it was extremely rare to see such a race in the eastern Stormy Sea region, even more so for the Emperor-level creatures. This was because although the Emperor-level creatures among the outer domain creatures could rival the Emperor-level creatures, most of them were bound to their own race and wouldn't leave easily, let alone come to the Stormy Sea region that was thousands of miles away. The aura on this flame demon emperor's body continued to increase. Great Tao patterns formed around his body, and the heaven and earth under his feet evolved into fire attribute array patterns. This was the first time his aura had climbed to the peak. This had never happened even when he was dealing with the fire and water divine emperors. He knew that this person in front of him was definitely different from the fire and water divine emperors. This was an aura that could only be sensed at the fifth realm. Endless flames instantly turned into a sea of fire that spread out in all directions. Then, a matchless aura spread out and shook the world. Clang! A flaming long saber suddenly appeared in the flame demon emperor's hand. This flaming long saber slashed down in Yi Shiwen's direction at an astonishing speed. The flame demon emperor was already doing his best. He didn't want to talk to Yi Shiwen at this time. The Emperor-level creature and the Emperor-level creature were simply fated enemies. Once they met, they would fight to the death. This was the continuation of two races and two civilizations. Now, it was obvious that Yi Shiwen wouldn't let him off so easily. That's all there is to it. His left hand turned into the overturning sky seal. The martial emperor seal began to spin, and his right hand completely turned into the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. One punch and one seal, unparalleled fierceness, shocking the world. He charged directly at the flaming long saber. These were 2 transcendent martial arts. Anyone who possessed one of them would be able to dominate the world. However, he possessed both of them at the same time and had completely fused them together. That terrifying aura wreaked havoc on Yi Shiwen's body, and his hair fluttered in the wind. Boom! Yi Shiwen's fist fiercely collided with the flaming long blade. Suddenly, the sky collapsed and the earth cracked, and the world shook violently. What? You caught my flame saber with your bare hands? The flame demon emperor was shocked. In order to refine this flame saber, he had devoured several earth veins and spent many years to finally complete it. Although it wasn't an invincible Taoist tool, the Emperor-level creatures also had their own means. They couldn't condense the principles into a Taoist tool like the Emperor-level creature because they didn't cultivate the principles. However, they could condense their own magical power as a foundation to condense their own magical power into a Taoist tool. The power of these magical tools wasn't inferior to Taoist tools. Some are even superior to ordinary Taoist tools. There were many ways to do this. Many of them even used their own bodies to refine Taoist tools. Therefore, he was very clear about how terrifying the power of his flame saber was. However, his saber had been blocked by a casual punch from the person in front of him. What kind of physical body is this? The flame demon emperor was almost scared to death. His flame saber had slashed at Yi Shiwen's fist, but had no effect at all. It had only left a white mark. Even the flame law that he was so proud of couldn't hurt his physical body at all. It's too early to be shocked. Yi Shiwen let out a long and domineering roar. His black hair was fluttering. On his left hand, The Martial Emperor seal rotated and smashed down with the overturning sky seal. On the overturning sky seal, the infinite principles turned into divine chains and spread in all directions. Each divine chain was directly inserted into the void. The power of heaven and earth seemed to be completely reversed at this moment. It flowed along the divine chains and integrated into the seal of the overturning sky seal. Every time the overturning sky seal fell, the heaven and earth collapsed an inch. As it smashed down, it directly smashed everything. Even the principles couldn't escape in the face of this power and completely collapsed. What kind of power is this? The divine emperor of water and fire was completely shocked because he discovered that Yi Shiwen had become stronger. Although he hadn't broken through the boundary of the fifth realm, compared to the time when Yi Shiwen had saved them, he was undoubtedly many times stronger. How long has it been? How is this possible? How can he be so strong? The holy emperor of water and fire was also shocked by Yi Shiwen's progress. Such a speed of progress even shocked him, because at this time, he vaguely remembered that when he first met Yi Shiwen, he didn't seem to be that strong. In the process of advancing, Yi Shiwen's cultivation had improved a step, and now it had improved a step further. From the initial stage of the fifth realm to the peak of the fifth realm, such a speed of progress left him dumbfounded even though he knew the actual situation. After he stepped into the fourth realm, he cultivated to this step. Only he himself knew how much time he had spent. And how much time did Yi Shiwen spend to cultivate from the initial stage of the fifth realm to the peak of the fifth realm? At this time, a shocking speculation suddenly appeared in his mind. If this wasn't the limit of this person in front of him, then his future achievements were simply unbelievable. On the other side, the Flame Demon Emperor didn't think as much as he did, because the moment his flame blade was blocked, Yi Shiwen's overturning sky seal directly smashed down. Bang! The armor condensed from the flame law on his body couldn't resist Yi Shiwen's martial emperor seal at all and collapsed on the spot. Bang! His body was blasted away again, and half of his body was almost destroyed by Yi Shiwen. Damn it, how can he be so strong? Magma splashed out of the Flame Demon Emperor's body. His entire body was composed of magma, and it was condensed from countless flame law. Rumble! The Flame Demon Emperor crashed into the ground fiercely, and a huge crack almost appeared on the entire ground. The whole crack quickly turned into a magma pool, and he hid in it. The entire ground was shaking, and under the Flame Demon Emperor's control, countless earth veins emerged from the depths of the ground bit by bit. The Flame Demon Emperor wanted to make the entire environment the most suitable for him to fight in. At the same time, he was also absorbing the power of these earth veins and recovering bit by bit. Martial Emperor, be careful. The Fire and Water Divine Emperor hurriedly reminded. Don't worry, he can't overturn the sky. Yi Shiwen smiled coldly. He didn't care about the Flame Demon Emperor at all. Yi Shiwen took a step forward, and his whole body was surging with a terrifying aura. His battle aura swept through the ages, and his body seemed to spread from one end of the river of time to the other end. His body was flowing with flowing lights, and he exuded the aura of a supreme expert. Just as the Fire and Water Divine Emperor had guessed, Yi Shiwen had already stepped into the peak of the fifth realm, and was truly invincible in this realm. Even if he encountered a sixth realm expert, he was confident that he could escape unscathed, let alone a fifth realm expert. I've just broken through, and I haven't fully grasped my power yet. It just so happens that someone has come to me to die. Get lost. In the endless magma pool, a huge hand evolved from magma instantly grabbed out of the void and directly grabbed in Yi Shiwen's direction. Yi Shiwen was not afraid at all. He took a step forward, and endless golden light spread under his feet and crushed the huge hand on the spot. His whole body walked in the void, and with every step he took, the power of his body increased by a bit, as if there was no end. He was a supreme demon god walking between heaven and earth. It's useless if you're only at this level. Yi Shiwen's footsteps seemed slow, but they were actually very fast. In almost an instant, he had already arrived above the magma pool, and his whole body instantly spewed out endless Nanming fire, forming a flame domain. The magma was originally extremely hot, but it was instantly evaporated by the Nanming fire. The endless Nanming fire had already risen to the peak under Yi Shiwen's control. Even if the Phoenix ancestor was still alive, he would probably not be able to do much. In just a short time, more than half of the magma pool, which had originally spread for thousands of miles, had been evaporated by Yi Shiwen. It could not hurt Yi Shiwen at all, nor could it provide protection for the Fire Demon Emperor. Sure enough, Yi Shiwen immediately saw the Fire Demon Emperor in the center of the magma pool. Roar! The Fire Demon Emperor roared, and he opened his bloody mouth, spewing endless flames, forming a terrifying attack that blasted towards Yi Shiwen. Bang! Yi Shiwen merely waved his hand and instantly dispersed this terrifying attack, smashing it into pieces. It could not affect him at all. After stepping into the peak of the fifth realm, Yi Shiwen's strength had simply taken a qualitative leap, and it was tyrannical to an unimaginable extent. The Fire Demon Emperor, who was also in the fifth realm, was simply too weak to withstand a single blow from Yi Shiwen, and was not even as strong as the Nine Changes Divine Emperor's performance. It's time to end this. Yi Shiwen's expression was cold. The martial Emperor seal above his head rotated, growing bigger and bigger, and finally fell in an instant. Chapter 3094. Boom! The martial Emperor's seal fell, and a mushroom cloud slowly rose. The Flame Demon Emperor's body completely exploded under the martial Emperor's seal, and he was torn to pieces on the spot. Roar! The Flame Demon Emperor's head, which had been blown away, roared in the void. But Yi Shiwen didn't give him the chance. He took a step forward, and the aura on his body became even more terrifying. Every pore on his body was spewing out terrifying power, and the surging vitality was earth-shattering. Yi Shiwen's strength turned the surrounding area into a dead land, and many creatures in the Pan-Heavenly Palace didn't dare to approach. A battle between sovereign emperors was not something ordinary creatures could intervene in. Whoosh! The Avicii sword in Yi Shiwen's hand slashed down, and the Flame Demon Emperor's body, which had just been reconstructed, couldn't withstand it at all, and it exploded again. Yi Shiwen was like a robot, constantly slashing down, but it was just a mechanical slash. Each of these slashes could shatter heaven and earth, and now, all of them fell on the Flame Demon Emperor's body. Even with the Flame Demon Emperor's regenerative ability, it was of no use. The blood on his body was magma, and it splashed out directly. Every drop that fell would turn into a huge volcano, and it contained incredible power. This was the terror of Emperor-level creatures. But even so, under Yi Shiwen's attack, his incomparably tyrannical body was constantly being smashed by Yi Shiwen, and it was pierced through. Even though his spirit was hidden very deeply, and it was in harmony with the heavenly way, it was still useless under this level of attack. In the end, it was destroyed by Yi Shiwen's sword when it finally escaped, and the body was kept by Yi Shiwen, waiting to be exchanged for money. Another one killed. The Water-Fire Divine Emperor's face was a bit numb. Originally, witnessing the death of an emperor should have been a very big event, but now, after following Yi Shiwen for a while, he suddenly had this feeling that an emperor was not that big of a deal. One would die every few days, and as far as he knew, the emperor-level experts who died in Yi Shiwen's hands were enough to shock the world. It was unknown whether it would take hundreds of thousands of years or millions of years to cultivate an emperor-monarch-level expert. However, Yi Shiwen could kill such an expert in such a short time. He hadn't felt that his life would be in danger, even in the most dangerous situation a moment ago. However, this Flame Demon Emperor hadn't even been able to withstand a few rounds in Yi Shiwen's hands. He had become stronger. He had become even stronger. He even had a feeling that if this trend continued, it would only be a matter of time before Yi Shiwen stepped into the sixth realm. Compared to the fifth realm, the sixth realm was a whole new realm, representing a whole new domain. It was already the peak of the mid-stage god-monarch realm, and one more step, and one would be a big shot in the fortune god dynasty. Their words carried great weight, and no one dared to look down on them. Their status was completely different. Not everyone could step into the sovereign emperor realm. Although the advancement of the sovereign emperor realm required time, it didn't mean that it was useful. Many people were still at the first stage of the sovereign emperor realm after countless years. This kind of thing was very common. It was not rare. Because of this, Yi Shiwen's rapid advancement had given him such a big shock. This time, I'm indebted to Taoist martial emperor for your help. The holy emperor of water and fire had an embarrassed look on his face. In such a short time, he had been saved by Yi Shiwen twice. This is what I should do. Taoist martial emperor of water and fire need not worry about it, Yi Shiwen said. Although he was acquainted with the holy emperor of water and fire, it didn't mean that he would definitely help. If the other party wasn't a foreign creature, but a sovereign emperor of the fortune god dynasty, Yi Shiwen wouldn't necessarily help. The fortune god dynasty was at war with foreign creatures, and both sides were already irreconcilable. No matter what he did, it would be politically correct. But if he got involved in a dispute between other forces of the fortune god dynasty, then he needed to think carefully. Although Yi Shiwen wasn't afraid of trouble, if he got involved for someone else's matter, then it was worth thinking carefully. After all, his friendship with the holy emperor of water and fire hadn't reached that point. But I also have a question to ask you. Was the flame demon emperor chasing you for the time fragment? Yi Shiwen asked. That's right, it was the time fragment. The holy emperor of water and fire had no intention of hiding it, and readily admitted it. For this time fragment, he had been chased all the way here. If he hadn't met Yi Shiwen, the consequences would be unimaginable. He didn't know how much he would have to pay to escape. Yi Shiwen's eyes suddenly lit up. He remembered that he hadn't heard wrong. It was indeed the time fragment. If it was anything else, it might not have been able to lure him out. But the time fragment was different because it was something he had been looking for all this time to repair the time robe. The time robe was unparalleled in both offense and defense, but similarly, its materials were very difficult to find. The most important was the time fragment. Yi Shiwen had searched for many years, but he hadn't found it. Now that he had information about the time fragment, how could he not be tempted? May I ask, Taoist martial emperor, where did you find this time fragment? Yi Shiwen asked. Taoist martial emperor still doesn't know. The holy emperor of water and fire couldn't help but look at Yi Shiwen with some surprise, and then immediately reacted. I see. Taoist martial emperor must have been in closed-door training during this time, so you didn't pay attention to the outside world. Otherwise, I don't need to tell you, Taoist martial emperor should also know. Then, I'll just draw a snake's legs and tell you. The holy emperor of water and fire explained everything. Only then did Yi Shiwen know that during the few years he had been in closed-door training, another major event had happened in the Pan-Heavenly Palace. The people who had explored the depths of the Pan-Heavenly Palace had found a place called Time Valley. There were time fragments in this place, and it had attracted the attention of many sovereign emperors and emperor-level creatures. The law of time was one of the most mysterious and difficult to understand laws in the world. Usually, people could only comprehend it out of thin air, and the efficiency was extremely limited. But if they could obtain the time fragment, the speed would be completely different. The Time Lord had become an emperor with the help of the time law in the past, and he had obtained a fragment of the time law in the past. Later, Yi Shiwen had used this fragment to deduce the devil wings from the space wings to the time wings. How could he have accomplished this if he hadn't refined the time magic robe with the help of the time fragments? This was simply impossible. This had caused countless covetous eyes. However, there were many time fragments in the Time Valley. It was common knowledge that the influence of time didn't exist for the deities who had achieved the Tao. They had already transcended the river of time and escaped from life and death. They had the same lifespan as the world. However, among these fragments of time, there were some terrifying ones that could even affect sovereign kings. Emperor-level life forms were extremely powerful. Although they couldn't see through life and death, they could still maintain their most powerful state until the moment they died. However, they were still turned into a pile of bones by these fragments of time laws. There were also sovereign emperors who were careless and were cut into pieces and died tragically. There were even many powerful, ancient, vicious beasts that were born with the law of time, and they were extremely dangerous. It was not easy to obtain a time fragment. Because of this, the Holy Emperor of Water and Fire was not willing to give up after obtaining this time fragment, and would rather choose to fight. Time plus space was the universe, and everything else was just within the universe. Many other laws could be deduced from the law of time. Relying on this time fragment, the possibility of him entering the fifth realm had undoubtedly greatly increased. In short, my time fragment was found in the Valley of Time. With your strength, seizing a time fragment shouldn't be a problem at all. The Holy Emperor of Water and Fire was slightly vigilant, fearing that Yi Shiwen would suddenly turn hostile. With their relationship, it wouldn't be an ordinary relationship. However, when it came to a divine object like the time fragment, it wasn't necessarily so. Although the Holy Emperor of Water and Fire hid it very well, Yi Shiwen still saw through it. However, he didn't care. After all, if he hadn't saved the Holy Emperor of Water and Fire twice before, they could only be regarded as strangers who met by chance. It was normal for the Holy Emperor to not trust him. The law of time. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes. Did you just say that an Emperor-level creature directly turned into a skeleton under the effect of the law of time? Yes, that's right. It's just too dangerous. That's why I don't dare to touch those large fragments of the law of time. The fragment in my hand was obtained after killing a fierce beast in the Valley of Time. Holy Emperor Water and Fire said. In other words, the time fragment can even affect the time around Emperor level. Yi Shiwen pursed his lips. Suddenly, he thought of an extremely crazy idea. In the time fragment, it can even speed up cultivation. What? The Holy Emperor of Water and Fire's eyes widened, staring at Yi Shiwen. He didn't expect Yi Shiwen to have such a crazy idea. Taoist martial emperor don't joke around. Maybe you haven't experienced it yourself, so you don't know. Although the flow of time doesn't matter to us emperor-level creatures, unlike emperor-level creatures who can instantly turn into bones, the law of time is very corrosive. This is not a joke. The Holy Emperor of Water and Fire felt that he still needed to warn Yi Shiwen. This idea was very good, but the reality was very cruel. It wasn't that no one had thought of such an outcome, but the result was that the law of time would cut them in half, and the Emperor-level creatures would die tragically. The time fragments were too concentrated, too terrifying. Chapter 3095. Even for an emperor, the law of time was still extremely mysterious. It couldn't be seen, nor could it be touched. Unlike other laws, an emperor could even see the operation of these laws with their naked eyes if they opened their magic eyes. As for the law of time, an emperor could only figure out the various aspects of the law of time through the operation of other laws. If the law of time was condensed, then its power would be unimaginably great. It might be possible to just comprehend the principles, but if one wanted to cultivate in the time fragment, it would undoubtedly be suicidal. Yi Shiwen faintly smiled, but didn't explain anything. What others couldn't do didn't necessarily mean that he couldn't. The most important thing was that he had the time robe on his body. This was his greatest reliance. The time robe was broken, but it still possessed incredible might. What kind of person was the Holy Emperor of Water and Fire? Of course, he could see that Yi Shiwen actually didn't listen to his words. Originally, he felt that he would be at a disadvantage if he didn't listen to the old man's advice. However, he immediately thought of Yi Shiwen's terrifying advancement speed. Perhaps this person in front of him really had abilities and means that others didn't know about. Otherwise, he wouldn't dare to be so confident. Then I'll take my leave first. I also want to go to the Time Valley to take a look. Yi Shiwen said bluntly. There was no need to hide this kind of thing. After asking the Holy Emperor of Water and Fire about the location of the Time Valley, Yi Shiwen immediately stepped out of the sky, full of golden light, and flew in the direction of the Time Valley. The Holy Emperor of Water and Fire also quickly left this place. This time, he obtained a small piece of time fragment, which was already a rare harvest for him. The Time Valley was a special area in the depths of the Pantheon Palace. Although it was called a valley, it was actually a huge basin. No one knew how this valley was formed, and no one was willing to care about it. Powerful emperor would constantly fly in from time to time. The entire area was gray. Even with the emperor's magic eyes, there was no way to see through the situation in this area. A golden light flashed, and Yi Shiwen's figure slowly emerged from it. As soon as he arrived at the edge of the Time Valley, Yi Shiwen felt an extremely heavy feeling. An extremely uncoordinated feeling emerged. As far as his eyes could see, he found several areas where the flow of time was completely different. In a normal place, this would undoubtedly be impossible. However, in this place, it appeared at the same time. Some were hundreds of times faster than the current flow of time, while others were dozens of times slower than the current flow of time. Yi Shiwen could even see several peak quasi-emperors struggling in this region. Their movements were as slow as snails in this region, which was dozens of times faster than the outside world. Yi Shiwen could see that there was a fragment of time law of different sizes in the depths of the core of each strange flow of time. It was these fragments of the laws of time that caused time to flow at completely different speeds. Some were fast, some were slow. Yi Shiwen immediately flew in. Suddenly, he felt that the surrounding time had slowed down. His movements had also slowed down by dozens of times, just like those peak quasi-emperors he had seen before. However, his speed was already extremely fast. Even if he was slowed down by dozens of times, he was still as fast as a bolt of lightning. Suddenly, the whole world trembled violently. A claw that blotted out the sky directly stretched out from the void. It could even break through this region of time, as if it was completely unaffected. Then, an incomparably huge, ferocious beast poked its head out. This ferocious beast's entire body was transparent. One could only vaguely see its existence in the void. The scales all over its body were condensed from the power of time. It could be said that it was the incarnation of the power of time. Is this a time beast? Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes and suddenly remembered. This was the time beast that the Water-Fire Divine Emperor had mentioned before. It seemed to be born from the power of time. These time beasts were born with the power of time, so they wouldn't be affected by these fragments of time. They almost instantly rushed over at an extremely fast speed. Yi Shiwen didn't even look at them. He just stretched out his big hand and instantly became bigger and bigger. It rose against the wind and grabbed towards the time beast like a mountain. Bang! The attack of this time beast was instantly broken by Yi Shiwen. Then, this time beast was caught by Yi Shiwen. Roar! This time beast was constantly roaring and struggling. It wanted to break free from Yi Shiwen's grasp, but it was useless. No matter how it evolved the power of time, it was useless in Yi Shiwen's eyes. Yi Shiwen's understanding of the power of time had reached a peak. This level of struggle and evolution was just child's play in his eyes. Yi Shiwen could be considered to have done a lot of research on the law of time. However, he was still far from being able to condense time fragments on his own. Therefore, he wanted to obtain time fragments. In the process of repairing the time robe, his understanding of the law of time would also improve by leaps and bounds. Maybe he could use this to break through to the sixth realm in one fell swoop. Bang! This time, beast couldn't even resist for a little while in Yi Shiwen's hand. It was directly crushed and turned into countless pure power of time. It's a pity. Although it's formed by the power of time, it's still too low level. There's no time fragment in its body. This time beast didn't have the time fragment that Yi Shiwen wanted to obtain. It seemed that the Holy Emperor of Water and Fire was right. The only time beasts with time fragments in their bodies were time beast emperors who had already advanced to the emperor level. It was no wonder that the Flame Demon Emperor could chase after the Divine Emperor of Water and Fire to the point where he would not rest until one of them was dead. The time fragment was indeed hard to find, even in this time valley. Yi Shiwen didn't stop at all. He took a step and directly stepped out of the influence of this time turbulence. The time robe began to appear on his body. The appearance of the time robe directly isolated the influence of the power of time. This time, turbulence couldn't affect his existence at all. Who is that person? Why doesn't the power of time affect him at all? At this time, the peak quasi-emperors in the distance looked at each other. They felt as if they had seen a ghost. It wasn't that they hadn't seen emperor-emperors. They had also encountered a few emperor-emperors along the way. However, they had never seen anyone like Yishuan, who directly broke through the time turbulence and left. So scary. These peak quasi-emperors had a faint feeling of regret in their hearts. With their strength, they might be able to fish in troubled waters. Perhaps it was possible that they could obtain some extraordinary inheritance. It was even possible that they could step into the emperor realm. However, this possibility was too small. More likely, they would die tragically here without anyone knowing. Even emperor-emperors and emperor realm creatures would die, let alone peak quasi-emperors. Yishuan flew all the way to the depths of the Time Valley. He encountered many time beasts along the way. However, these time beasts weren't a match for him at all. Many of them wanted to attack Yishuan, but they weren't a match for him at all. They were all pinched to death by Yishuan. Then, the endless power of time in their bodies was collected and refined by Yishuan. He used it to repair the hole in the time robe. Although the effect wasn't very big, it was better than nothing. Why is there only such a little? Yishuan killed dozens of time beasts. However, he wasn't very satisfied. The power of time that could be extracted from each time beast was too little. He wanted to find a few time beast emperors and kill them. Then, the situation would be completely different. According to the Waterfire Holy Emperor, there should be time beast emperors everywhere. Why was it that Yishuan only saw a few dozen of them? Roar. Suddenly, an extremely loud roar came from the depths of the Time Valley. This loud roar turned into a terrifying sound wave that swept across the sky. Under the support of the power of time, it completely covered the entire Time Valley at lightning speed. Yishuan's expression changed slightly. The power of this wave of roar and roar was indeed amazing. An ordinary peak quasi-emperor could be killed on the spot by this roar. Bang! Yishuan slapped down, and the sound wave that had already spread in front of him was smashed to pieces on the spot. It couldn't affect him at all. However, this sound wave was still spreading in all directions at lightning speed around Yishuan. Time Beast Emperor. Yishuan's eyes immediately lit up. What else could have such power besides the Time Beast Emperor? Ordinary time beasts couldn't achieve this level. Thinking of this, Yishuan immediately flew towards the depths of the Time Valley without saying anything. After a while, he had already rushed to the depths of the Time Valley. Suddenly, an extremely spectacular scene appeared in front of him. It appeared hundreds of miles away. Above the deepest part of the Time Valley, a golden word forbidden was floating in the sky. It was shining with the light of the law that made people's hearts jump. This word completely evolved into a restriction. It seemed to have completely locked the core central area of the entire Time Valley. And under this forbidden word, an incomparably huge figure flashed faintly. This was an extremely terrifying figure. His figure occupied more than half of the deepest part of the Time Valley. The terrifying aura emitted from his body was terrifying. The restriction formed by this forbidden word was simply like a cage. This extremely terrifying figure was firmly locked in it. He was indomitable and incomparably huge, like a giant that had been born at the beginning of the world. In front of this figure, everyone was as small as an ant. Chapter 3096. That huge body stood between heaven and earth, like a pillar supporting the heavens, like a mountain towering into the sky. Around it, that huge forbidden word glittered with golden light, as if it was the largest cage between heaven and earth. Just a single forbidden word could imprison such a majestic creature within it. This word had already deeply grasped the essence of the Tao of sealing. Even the Tao of sealing that Yishuan had comprehended paled in comparison to this one. Around this forbidden word, many fierce battles were taking place, forming many battlefields. Yishuan's gaze swept across, and he immediately understood why he hadn't encountered a single time Beast Emperor on his way here. It turned out that all the time Beast Emperors were gathered here. Yishuin saw more than 20-time Beast Emperors fighting on various battlefields. They were commanding many-time beasts to pounce towards the invaders. And on various battlefields, he could see all kinds of peak quasi-emperors fighting. Even if they weren't peak quasi-emperors, they were still super geniuses who could fight above their realm, and their combat strength was comparable to peak quasi-emperors. There were even emperors among them, fighting with those powerful time Beast Emperors. And there were more than a dozen time Beast Emperors that formed a formation, firmly guarding the huge time Beast Emperor in the center. It seemed that all the battles were for this huge time Beast Emperor. Even though the forbidden word forbidden was used to confine its terrifying aura, the little bit of aura that leaked out was enough to shock people. This time Beast Emperor might be at the level of the 9th realm. Yishuin narrowed his eyes. When he sensed this, he was also a little shocked. What kind of terrifying existence was a 9th realm emperor-level creature? In the stormy sea region, it was enough to stir up the winds and clouds. With a stomp of its foot, the entire stormy sea region would follow suit. That was a real big shot. If the 7th realm was considered a small giant, then the 9th realm was undoubtedly a giant among giants. Moreover, this time Beast Emperor was born in accordance with the laws of time. It was born with a magical power of time, and its combat strength was valiant enough to rank at the top among those in the same realm. Based on the situation of Yishuin's cultivation, there were pitifully few people who could cultivate the laws of time. However, those who had touched the surface of the laws of time were all top-notch existences among those in the same realm. Not to mention a super existence like the time Beast Ancestor. These time Beast Emperors were obviously led by this time Beast Ancestor. Moreover, these time Beast Emperors were also very tyrannical. Sometimes, they could block the surprise attack of 2 or even 3 Emperor Realm experts. Yishuin could feel the aura of more than 50 or 60 Emperor Realm experts. Perhaps, more than half of the Emperor Realm experts who had broken into this place had already arrived here. Yishuin was not sure. The battles were very intense, but there were very few real-life and death battles. Most of the battles were still very restrained. Everyone seemed to be waiting for something. Whether it was the Time B side or the Sovereign Emperor's side, they were all very restrained and didn't start fighting. Even the Sovereign Emperor's side and the Sovereign Emperor's side, which already had many grudges against each other, didn't start fighting the moment they saw each other. Soon, Yishuin understood why. They were waiting for the time Beast Emperor to die. This time Beast Emperor had been imprisoned in this forbidden word for an unknown number of years. It was obvious that he was about to reach the end of his lifespan. This time Beast Emperor was still very powerful. In fact, it was terrifyingly powerful. However, its body was already surrounded by death energy. It was obvious that it was about to die. With the strength of Emperor Realm experts, they could maintain their peak fighting strength until the very end. They would age rapidly after the Deva's 5 decrepit phenomena arrived. They would go through the life of an ordinary person in a short period of time. From their peak to their death, their vitality would deteriorate to an unimaginable extent. Even the 9th realm Emperor Realm experts were no exception. They couldn't escape this natural law. As long as they couldn't comprehend the laws and transcend life and death, they would face such a day sooner or later. There were no exceptions. Some might have a fortuitous encounter that could prolong their lives for a while, but it wouldn't change their fate. The only way was to sever their own Tao foundation and start all over again. Then, they would attack the supreme Great Tao. Finally, they would use the laws to become an emperor. However, there were very few Emperor Realm experts who could do this. Most of the Emperor Realm experts who severed their own Tao foundation would eventually degenerate into ordinary gods. Relying on their original body of Emperor Realm experts, they could be considered tyrannical for a while. However, it was useless. If they really provoked a big shot, they would still die. Only Emperor Realm experts and Emperor Realm experts were the rulers of the world. If one didn't reach this level, they would never be able to be compared with this level. Yishuan immediately understood everyone's plan. They must want to fight for the time fragment inside the time beast emperor's body. The time fragment inside the ninth realm time beast emperor's body must be extraordinary. Thinking of this, even Yishuan couldn't help but become excited. Since this idea arose in his heart, Yishuan immediately calculated. All the Emperor Realm experts and Emperor Realm experts present would become his opponents. He immediately calmed down and carefully observed. There were many Emperor Realm experts present, but there was only one figure standing tall between heaven and earth with his hands clasped behind his back. His eyes were fixed on the time beast emperor old ancestor in the prison with the word forbidden. This person had an extremely powerful aura around him. He stood firmly in the void, and no matter the aftermath of the battle that flowed out from the various battlefield around him, it would automatically collapse around him. Not even the slightest breeze could be stirred up. It was as if there was an aura around him that could suppress all directions. There was a faint feeling of the overlord of the world on his body. However, Yishuan soon learned the identity of this person from the surrounding Emperor Realm experts' divine sense communication, because this person was the center of everyone's discussion. When he learned the identity of this person, even with Yishuan's cultivation, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. This person was actually the closest disciple of one of the 10 Emperor Realm experts who had betrayed the Fortune God dynasty. He was the Gung-Jin Tiger Emperor. The legend of the Yi Huang gradually began to spread as he reappeared in the Stormy Sea region. Even Yi Shiwen had heard of his legend. It was said that in the Fortune God dynasty's central court, there were a total of 10 Emperor Realm experts who jointly ruled. Each of them was in existence at the peak of the Ninth Realm. Any one of them could suppress any rebellion in the Fortune God dynasty. Moreover, each of them had many achievements in annihilating Emperor-level life forms. Their individual strength was extremely tyrannical, and the Yi Huang was one of them. Moreover, his ranking among them wasn't low. Later on, for some unknown reason, the Yi Huang betrayed the Fortune God dynasty and fled into the Stormy Sea region to establish himself. The Outer Domain and the Fortune God dynasty had always been at odds, and they often accepted traitors from each other. Therefore, although the Yi Huang had betrayed the Fortune God dynasty and fled to the Outer Domain, he was still one of the superpowers in the Outer Domain. And this Gung-Jin Tiger Emperor was a legend among legends. Rumor had it that the Yi Huang had accidentally obtained a piece of Gung-Jin's spirit. This itself was a heavenly treasure. It was rare that the Yi Huang did not erase this Gung-Jin spirit. Instead, he cultivated it with great care. Later on, he allowed the Gung-Jin Tiger Emperor to transform into a human form and personally accepted him as a disciple. The Gung Metal Tiger Emperor was born as a heavenly divine creature, and his foundation was also the noblest. On top of that, he had the personal guidance of a super emperor like the Night Emperor. His future was limitless. Before the Night Emperor had betrayed the Fortune Divine Dynasty, the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor was already the strongest person among the same generation in the Fortune Divine Dynasty. He was invincible under the heavens, and no one could be mentioned in the same breath as him among peak half-emperors. After Yi Huang defected and fled to the outer regions, the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor also followed. In the Stormy Sea region, where the competition was even more intense, he quickly stood out and made an immortal name for himself. In less than 100,000 years after that, he successfully became a martial emperor. Although he had yet to enter the seventh realm and become a small giant, he was still one of the strongest experts in the seventh realm. Among the many experts who had entered the Pan-Heavenly Palace this time, many people regarded him as the strongest expert. He was also their biggest opponent in the competition for the fortuitous encounters in the Pan-Heavenly Palace. Because of this, many people didn't think that he was a secret. In fact, it had become a semi-public matter. Yishuan quickly figured it out. The Gung-Jin Tiger Emperor did not seem to have any intention of hiding it. With his cultivation at the peak of the sixth realm, there was no need for him to feign civility with anyone. He didn't even need to hide from anyone. Only others would hide from him. Among the many experts who had entered the Pan-Heavenly Palace this time, there were only a few people who could compete with him. Moreover, those few people weren't here. Therefore, he had nothing to fear. In his eyes, the core law of time within the body of the time beast emperor ancestor was already in his possession. No one else could take it away from him. Therefore, he had nothing to fear. For Yishuan, the biggest stumbling block was the Gung-Jin Tiger Emperor if he wanted to seize the time law inside the body of the time beast emperor. The Gung-Jin Tiger Emperor was unparalleled. However, Yishuan wasn't the only one who wanted to seize the time law inside the body of the time beast emperor. Apart from the Gung-Jin Tiger Emperor, there were also a few people who were faintly discernible. They had occupied the most advantageous positions and were waiting to attack at any time. These people weren't as strong as the Gung-Jin Tiger Emperor. However, the disparity between them wasn't as great as the Gung-Jin Tiger Emperor. In fact, there was a faint trend of them joining hands because of the existence of the Gung-Jin Tiger Emperor. Everyone knew that the Gung-Jin Tiger Emperor was powerful and difficult to deal with. Chapter 3097. Everyone knew that the Gung-Jin Tiger Emperor was powerful and difficult to deal with. However, it was impossible for them to give up on the time fragment in the body of the time beast emperor, especially since there were more than one or two people eyeing it. If there were only one or two people, they might retreat. However, with so many people had the idea of fishing in troubled waters. All of them wanted to take advantage of the chaos to snatch the fragment of the time beast emperor's law of time. The Gung Metal Tiger Emperor might have known about this, or he might not have known about it all. However, to the powerful Gung Metal Tiger Emperor, he didn't care about the threat of these people. Yishuan looked at them one by one. There were many emperors present. However, most of them were in the second or third realm. There weren't many in the fifth realm. Besides the Gung-Jin Tiger Emperor, who was at the peak of the sixth realm, there were 4 other people in the sixth realm. They were naturally inferior to the Gung-Jin Tiger Emperor, but compared to the others, these 4 people were completely above everyone else. These 4 people were in 4 directions and occupied the best spots to attack. They didn't dare to swagger in front of everyone like the Gung-Jin Tiger Emperor and become the target of everyone's attacks. However, no one dared to appear near where they were. In Yishuan's eyes, the double pupils appeared. The magical power of the double pupils was omnipotent. No matter how well one hid, there was no secret in front of him. The existences in the sixth realm were the same. The leader was a man in purple. This person was hidden in the void. There was a faint arrogance on his body. He was faintly separated from the other emperors. No one dared to approach him. This person was called the Rain Emperor. His body was surrounded by the law of rain. He had reached the peak of this path. Among everyone, even without the Gung-Jin Tiger Emperor, this person would still be the best. Besides the Rain Emperor, there was also a middle-aged man in white who was sitting cross-legged on the cloud bed. He was faintly discernible, ready to attack at any time. This person was called the Lord of the Permitha. From the words of the others, Yishuan knew that this Lord of the Permitha wasn't an emperor of the Eastern Domain. He came from an extremely powerful family in the Fortune God dynasty. He used to be the patriarch of that family. Besides Yishuan, everyone else had heard of him. These 2 could be considered experts on the Sovereign Emperor's side. Apart from them, the other 2 were peak emperor-class life forms. One of them was a huge black tortoise with a body as large as a primordial divine mountain. It was impossible to ignore it even from a great distance. It turned out to be a sky-shaking turtle emperor. More than a decade ago, the extremely powerful sky-shaking turtle emperor of the ninth realm had once appeared near the crack. Although he abided by the agreement between the 2 camps and did not appear in person, it was obvious that this sky-shaking turtle emperor was the emperor of the sky-shaking turtle clan. Whether it was his own strength or the sky-shaking turtle emperor behind him, they were not to be underestimated. Apart from the sky-shaking turtle emperor, there was another emperor with a huge bird's head, the Warhawk Emperor. His body was enormous, and his wingspan spanned several hundred miles. Every feather was imbued with an unimaginably powerful power of laws, which allowed him to gently flap his wings to create gales that could easily blow away a mountain range for who knew how many miles. This Warhawk Emperor was also from a powerful royal family in the Stormy Sea region. The lair of this family was in the Endless Void. In the Stormy Sea region, they had a great say. Apart from the Gungjin Tiger Emperor, these 4 people were vaguely respected. It should be said that apart from these 5 people, Yi Shiwen did not care about the others at all. Although they were all sovereign emperors, and there were even a few sovereign emperors of the 5th realm among them, they were not enough in Yi Shiwen's eyes. They were not a match at all. Yi Shiwen was also in the 5th realm, and he could completely crush them. At the same time, he was not afraid of facing a few of them. Therefore, in Yi Shiwen's eyes, apart from these 5 people, no one else was worthy of his attention. However, in fact, this was not the case. Those 5 Emperor-level experts were also at the 5th realm, and they were also super experts in the eyes of others. If they knew about Yi Shiwen's thoughts, they would immediately look for Yi Shiwen to learn from each other and see who would be unable to withstand a single blow. This Gung Metal Tiger Emperor is really strong, tyrannical to the point of being boundlessly tyrannical. It's a pity that his master is the Fortune God Dynasty's most wanted fugitive, and his name is also very high on the wanted list. If we could kill him, I'm afraid we would really get rich overnight. Are you kidding me? That is the Gungjin Tiger Emperor. There are more than 1 or 2 sovereign emperors of the 6th realm who have been defeated by him. 2nd realm sovereign emperors like us might not even be able to last 1 round in front of him. Several sovereign emperors whispered in secret. They did not dare to let the Gungjin Tiger Emperor hear them. Otherwise, the consequences would be simply unimaginable. It would not be difficult for a person of that level to deal with them. Just as they were talking, the Gungjin Tiger Emperor seemed to have sensed that they were talking. Suddenly, his eyes turned and looked in their direction. Immediately, these sovereign emperors were scared out of their wits. Their bodies were drenched in cold sweat, and they didn't even dare to breathe casually. If the Gung Metal Tiger King attacked them, they would most likely be doomed. They were also people who frequently appeared in the Stormy Sea region. Naturally, they were very clear about the illustrious reputation of the Gungjin Tiger Emperor in the Stormy Sea region. It was established by countless people. How could they doubt it? Fortunately, the Gungjin Tiger Emperor did not look for too long. There was a trace of disdain in the corner of his eyes. It seemed as if he was too lazy to say anything. Then, he turned his head and stared at the time beast ancestor. However, these sovereign emperors did not know that not far behind them, Yi Shiwen had also raised his martial power. These sovereign emperors were not aware of this. They thought that the Gungjin Tiger Emperor had heard their words. So, they turned their heads and looked in their direction. However, Yi Shiwen could clearly feel that the Gungjin Tiger Emperor's gaze had fallen on him. It was obvious that the Gungjin Tiger Emperor had sensed that Yi Shiwen had used his dual pupils to look at him. Therefore, the Gungjin Tiger Emperor had turned his head to look at him. However, Yi Shiwen could clearly feel that the Gungjin Tiger Emperor's gaze had fallen on him. Obviously, the Gungjin Tiger Emperor had sensed that Yi Shiwen had used his dual pupils to look at the Gungjin Tiger Emperor. Only the Gungjin Tiger Emperor had sensed his gaze. The others did not even know what had happened. Yi Shiwen slightly narrowed his eyes. The Gungjin Tiger Emperor's martial power was indeed above everyone else's. He used his dual pupils to look at all the sovereign emperors. Only the Gungjin Tiger Emperor had sensed his gaze. The others did not even know what had happened. Those sovereign emperors of the 6th realm had only faintly sensed that someone was looking at them. However, they did not know where the gaze had come from. From this point of view, the Gungjin Tiger Emperor was not just a little stronger than the others. He could indeed be considered as the biggest opponent. Yi Shiwen understood the meaning behind the Gungjin Tiger Emperor's gaze. It was clear that the Gungjin Tiger Emperor did not care about him. If it were him, he would probably do the same. However, he would also let the Gungjin Tiger Emperor know that he would have to pay a heavy price for underestimating him. However, he had almost thought that the Gungjin Tiger Emperor was about to make a move. Therefore, he had raised his martial power to the limit. If they really fought, he would not be able to defeat the Gungjin Tiger Emperor. However, the Gungjin Tiger Emperor could not do anything to him. He was very confident that he would be able to escape unscathed. However, at this moment, the entire Time Valley was in an uproar. Those powerful Time Beast Emperors seemed to have suddenly received some kind of command. They began to get agitated. The originally restrained scene had suddenly become chaotic. Those powerful Time Beast Emperors began to command the army of Time Beasts to attack the invaders. Kill! Kill them! Kill! 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 For a moment, the world was filled with all kinds of battle cries. The world was stirred up by powerful, murderous auras. The wind and clouds changed. Even the mysteries of heaven were affected. The weakest among the people present was at the quasi-emperor level. Even the powerful emperor-emperors were not rare. So, one could imagine how shocking and terrifying the scene would be when these people attacked together. As the battle situation suddenly became more intense, the battlefield, which had originally been controlled, suddenly became filled with blood. The number of casualties among the quasi-emperors suddenly increased. Powerful quasi-emperors were dying in every moment. Some of them were on the side of the Time Beasts, and some were on the side of the emperor-emperors and emperor-emperors. They were divided into two camps. Even the quasi-emperors and the foreign creatures were fighting each other. For a time, blood sprayed out and flowed like rivers. In fact, the casualties of the emperor-emperors gradually began to appear. Several emperor-emperors joined hands to kill the Time Beasts. There were also emperor-emperors and foreign creatures whose heads were bitten off by the Time Beasts, especially the foreign creatures' emperor level. They hadn't seen through the concept of time and life and death. So, they were entangled with the Time Beasts. Several of them had obviously aged. This was already incredible for the emperor-emperors who had been able to maintain their peak condition. Suddenly, a Time Beast Emperor of the Fifth Realm entered Yi Shiwen's eyes. It was fighting against 3 opponents, and it had blocked the attacks of 3 Emperor Lords and an Emperor-level life form. Moreover, one of them was also an Emperor-level life form of the Fifth Realm. But even so, this time Beast Emperor didn't fall into a disadvantageous position. It displayed extremely tyrannical combat strength. Its control of the law of time had reached perfection. It was going all out, and the law of time within its body was faintly discernible. Yi Shiwen's eyes lit up. He instantly took a step and attacked. Chapter 3098. Among these Time Beast Emperors, there was a Fifth Realm Time Beast Emperor that caught Yi Shiwen's attention. This Time Beast Emperor was high and mighty. It commanded the army of Time Beasts to attack in all directions. Its performance was extremely domineering. Except for the few Sixth Realm experts, it didn't care about the others. Yi Shiwen suddenly took a step and appeared in the center of this large group of Time Beasts. As soon as Yi Shiwen's figure appeared, these Time Beasts pounced on him at the same time. Their bodies were radiating the dazzling light of the Time Law. They formed groups, and thousands of them attacked Yi Shiwen. Each of these Time Beasts was extremely daring. They dared to attack Emperor-Emperors when they were alone, let alone so many Time Beasts gathered together. Moreover, they seemed to have received some kind of order to kill all the invading Emperor-Emperors and Emperor-level life forms. This attack contained the power of the Time Law that could topple mountains and overturn the seas. It surged and surged violently like thunder. It was unknown how many attacks of the Time Law were mixed in. Ordinary means naturally wouldn't be enough for these Time Beasts to contend against Emperor-Emperors. However, the Time Law was completely different. Those who could grasp the Time Law might even contend against Emperor-Emperors. 1 or 2 of them wouldn't be a problem, but when their numbers increased to thousands and thousands, their magical time abilities could even contend against ordinary Emperor-Emperors. However, they could only contend against ordinary Emperor-Emperors. Yi Shiwen wasn't an ordinary Emperor-Emperor, and he wasn't someone they could contend against. Yi Shiwen punched out. Suddenly, countless vortexes appeared in the sky, shaking in all directions. These vortexes contained Yi Shiwen's unparalleled fist energy. In an instant, these Time Beasts were swept into these vortexes, and they were shredded into pieces in a matter of minutes. Hundreds and thousands of Time Beasts were sucked into these vortexes every minute and second, and they were completely turned into ashes. The time law inside the bodies of these time beasts had been extracted. Yishiwen could only extract a trace of the time law from each of them. However, he was able to accumulate a small amount of time law with the continuous bombardment of these time beasts. This allowed Yi Shiwen's understanding of the time law to gradually improve. Roar! All outsiders must die. Seeing Yi Shiwen constantly killing their companions, these time beasts didn't have the slightest intention of stopping. On the contrary, their bodies carried a more fierce aura, and they rushed towards Yi Shiwen. Each of them was extremely fierce. Usually, they wouldn't choose to fight against an emperor king like Yi Shiwen, but at this time, they didn't have the slightest scruples. They didn't even care about their own lives. In the face of these time beasts that came to die, Yi Shiwen wasn't polite at all. He rushed in on the spot and spouted the tyrannical Nanmingli fire. These time beasts were immediately ignited when they came in contact with the Nanmingli fire. They were burned alive and turned into glass. Only a little bit of the time law's core was left in Yi Shiwen's body. Although the time law was only a trace and couldn't form into fragments, it was still a good supplement when there were a lot of them. The time beast bodies flickered with the light of time. They tried to resist and even tried to influence time, causing time to flow backwards. This was one of the most heaven-defying aspects of time laws. It could allow people to return to when they were not injured. They were like cockroaches that could not be killed. The time law was too mysterious and too tyrannical. Ordinary people had no way to resist the time law, but Yi Shiwen was completely different. His speed was too fast, and the Nanmingli fire was too overbearing. It burned them to death in an instant, not giving them time to recover. They had just tried to recover when they were killed by Yi Shiwen. These time beasts even formed a large array, condensing the power of time and bombarding Yi Shiwen. Bang! Yi Shiwen snorted coldly and smashed the power of time into pieces on the spot. Then he rushed into the Great Formation, and the entire Great Formation collapsed in an instant. Those time beasts also screamed and turned into ashes in an instant. Yi Shiwen was like a humanoid monster. Everywhere he went, the time beast died and turned into ashes. Wherever he went, the large array of the time beast army collapsed. No one could resist him, and at this moment, the tyrannical time beast emperor finally couldn't help but attack. Originally, he was suppressing the other emperor-level creatures and emperor-level creatures that had joined forces to attack him. But now, he finally realized that Yi Shiwen was a bigger threat. Roar! This time, Beast Emperor finally couldn't help but attack. The light of the time law instantly exploded on his body. That terrifying aura almost completely froze the time between heaven and earth. Compared to ordinary time beasts, this fifth realm time Beast Emperor was much stronger. This time Beast Emperor opened its bloody mouth. Countless power of time was condensed, forming a sharp sword, and slashed down on the spot. Sword of Time. This time Beast Emperor had actually cultivated the power of time to such a level. It could condense the Sword of Time and materialize the invisible time. This in itself was an incredible magical power. Just like the Time Robe, the Time Lord condensed the invisible existence of time into a material form and refined it into the Time Robe. Therefore, he could remain invincible under the joint attack of several Emperor-level creatures. He was powerful to an unimaginable extent, and finally became famous in one fell swoop against the Tian clan. Moreover, the Time Robe was very tough. If it hadn't encountered Emperor Primordius, it wouldn't have been damaged. Ordinary Emperor-level creatures wouldn't be able to destroy the Time Robe. What was time? Time was invisible and colorless. It didn't exist at all. Since it didn't exist, how could it be destroyed? This was the most heaven-defying aspect of the Time Robe. The Sword of Time condensed by this time Beast Emperor wasn't as powerful as the Time Robe. It was just a magical power and not a Dao tool. But just this alone was already very terrifying. The time Beast Emperor didn't have any intention to talk to Yi Shiwen. The Sword of Time instantly cut the space in half. Then, it rushed towards Yi Shiwen at lightning speed. Sword of Time. At this time, the expressions of several Emperor-level creatures not far away, suddenly changed. They were also drooling over the time fragments in the body of this fifth realm time beast emperor. That was why they joined forces to attack. But at this time, they were completely shocked by the means of the time beast emperor. The sword of time, condensed by the law of time, was too terrifying. It could definitely withstand a fatal blow from an ordinary Dao tool. Moreover, with the strangeness of the law of time, it was needless to say what kind of power and effect it could burst out. Many people had suffered from the time beast emperor before. Even the emperor-level creatures were killed by the time fragments. In the face of the power of time, even the mighty emperor-level creatures were insignificant. No one dared to say that they could completely control the existence of time. Who is this person? Can he block it? They all looked at Yi Shiwen, but they didn't hope that Yi Shiwen could block it because they didn't want to complicate the issue. There was one more powerful opponent. It was better to let Yi Shiwen take advantage of the situation to get rid of him. But in their hearts, they faintly hoped that Yi Shiwen could block it, because that would prove that the Sword of Time wasn't that great. Otherwise, Yi Shiwen's fate was likely to be their fate in the future. This power of time is indeed good, but it's still far from being able to hurt me. Yi Shiwen didn't care at all. He immediately blasted a punch and directly collided with the Sword of Time. Bang! The invisible, colorless, but powerful time sword collided with Yi Shiwen's fist on the spot. However, the power of time did not cut Yi Shiwen into two halves, as everyone had imagined. On the contrary, the situation was completely opposite. Yi Shiwen only used his fist to block the Sword of Time with his bare hands. Not only was there no bloody scene that everyone expected, but even Yi Shiwen's body didn't seem to be affected by the law of time at all. The law of time seemed to have completely lost its effect on Yi Shiwen. It couldn't penetrate through Yi Shiwen's layers of defense to affect his body. Time had lost its effect on him. This was naturally the effect of the time robe. With Yi Shiwen's ability, although he could also achieve this, he couldn't digest the power of time contained in the Sword of Time so easily. Everyone was very clear about the strangeness and horror of the magical power of time. Especially the many emperors who had cultivated to this level, they had more or less begun to come into contact with some of the law of time. It was just that they weren't so proficient and terrifying. Yi Shiwen smashed the Sword of Time with a punch and absorbed the law of time contained in it into his body. This scene also completely shocked the time beast emperor. It should be known that such a situation had never happened before. He had seen someone as powerful as the Gung Jin Tiger Emperor, who was able to resist the power of time with his own strength. This was not surprising. Although the law of time was powerful, it was not invincible. It was impossible to kill everything. However, he had never seen an existence like Yi Shiwen who could so effortlessly turn his all-out attack into ashes. Is this all you've got? Yi Shiwen laughed loudly. He didn't care at all. He took a step forward and once again rushed towards the side of the time beast emperor. The blood and qi in his body condensed like a pillar, surging like a stormy sea. He had also raised all of his power. He could already feel many malicious gazes sweeping over, so he had to end this battle quickly before they could react. Chapter 30-99. There were many people present who coveted this time beast emperor of the fifth realm. However, the others were still entangled by the time beasts. Only Yi Shiwen had already arrived in front of this time beast emperor. Among the many time beast emperors present, their strength wasn't very high. Apart from the time beast emperor old ancestor that was imprisoned in the forbidden cage, this time beast emperor was the most tyrannical. The other time beast emperors weren't very strong. At most, they were at the second or third realm. It seemed as if the destiny of the entire race had been plundered by the powerful time beast emperor old ancestor. There wouldn't be a stronger time beast emperor. If there was a time beast emperor of the seventh realm or above, even the Gung Jin Tiger Emperor wouldn't dare to be presumptuous. And this was almost the strongest time beast emperor. If it weren't for the fact that the experts of the sixth realm who could kill it were restraining each other, perhaps it would have already been besieged and killed. Even so, there were still many people besieging it at this time. There were even figures of experts of the Fifth Realm. Because of this, Yi Shiwen had to take the initiative to attack before everyone else. Yi Shiwen could guess why the other experts of the Sixth Realm didn't attack. Wasn't it because of the time Beast Emperor Old Ancestor? But for Yi Shiwen, it was completely different, because it was impossible for him to participate in the competition at the first moment. He had plenty of time to wait. Although the existence of the Sixth Realm couldn't do anything to him, it was also impossible for him to snatch food from the tiger's mouth from the hands of several experts of the Sixth Realm. This time, Beast Emperor seemed to be in front of him, but in fact, it was entrenched in the depths of the endless divine kingdom. Its eyes were fierce, and it was swallowing the world's vitality. Every time it swallowed, the light of the law of time would flicker. It was truly tyrannical to the extreme. Yi Shiwen suddenly chased after it, and this time, Beast Emperor sensed it. It suddenly raised its huge head, and a fierce light shot out of its eyes. It opened its bloody mouth, revealing its dense fangs. It seemed as if it wanted to swallow the world. At that moment, a divine kingdom of time suddenly spread out. In an instant, countless resentful souls roared. These were the many creatures that had died in its hands over the years. Even their primordial spirits couldn't escape. They were imprisoned and turned into resentful souls. Die, human! All of a sudden, the Time Beast Emperor's eyes almost cracked open, and it swept out an extremely tyrannical divine sense. The power of time immediately began to act like a pair of invisible giant hands, and it directly imprisoned Yi Shiwen. In his hands, the power of time had truly become a kind of art. His technique was close to the Tao, and the power of his time divine art had reached an unimaginable level. However, it seemed to be useless against Yi Shiwen. There seemed to be something in Yi Shiwen's body that could directly break through his time power. Moreover, it didn't break through forcibly. Instead, it melted easily, just like brine touching tofu. It dissolved effortlessly. The power of time had no effect on Yi Shiwen. Within the Time Beast Emperor's divine kingdom of time, it was as if it had been divided into pieces of time fragments. The flow of time was completely different. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to survive in this completely different flow of time. His body would soon collapse. However, Yi Shiwen didn't show such a situation. In fact, he didn't even use spiritual power to protect his body. He directly walked in the divine kingdom of time, but he wasn't affected at all. The power of time is indeed tyrannical, but it also depends on who it is. My body has long been indestructible, and no time can erase my body. No matter how fast or slow the flow of time is, it doesn't matter to me at all. Yi Shiwen said indifferently. With his understanding of the law of time, this degree of time restraint and influence was completely meaningless. 6 Paths of Reincarnation Fist. Yi Shiwen instantly appeared in front of the Time Beast Emperor, and he immediately blasted out a punch. The fist energy twisted and gushed out, turning into a huge 6 Paths wheel. The power of 6 Paths of Reincarnation and the 6 Paths wheel almost shattered everything. But in just a moment, the entire divine kingdom was smashed into pieces. The power of this punch was unimaginably tyrannical. Roar! This time, Beast Emperor let out a loud roar, and it moved almost immediately. It actually collided with the 6 Paths wheel on the spot. Bang! There was a loud sound of collision, and a shocking shock wave spread out in all directions. Yi Shiwen's fist blasted on the Time Beast Emperor's body, and the endless power of the law of time surged out of the Time Beast Emperor's body. It was like an armor, and it was firmly protected in it. The power of time on this Time Beast Emperor's body only resisted for a short period of time, and its defense was broken by Yi Shiwen's punch. The punch directly hit its body, and then it let out a scream and was blasted away on the spot. Poochie! Blood sprayed out, and it was like a sky full of stars spraying out. What a strong punch, just a simple punch, can actually shatter the defense of the Time Beast Emperor. A few emperors who were rushing over from not far away saw this scene, and they couldn't help but gasp. They had more or less fought with this fifth realm time beast emperor before, and they also knew how terrifying this fifth realm time beast was, especially that mysterious and unpredictable power of time, which made them even more helpless. However, when this fifth realm time beast emperor was facing Yishiwen, it had a feeling of being defeated in every aspect, and it was completely not a match for him. The power of time that it was proficient in could dominate the world, but it seemed to have lost its effect in front of Yishiwen, and it was completely useless. Who the hell is this person? Some people couldn't help but stare at Yishiwen with their eyes wide open, and they wanted to know where he came from. I seem to have seen him somewhere. Hiss. I remember now. Isn't he the person that the Heavenly Tao sect is hunting? Someone suddenly remembered. Wasn't the Heavenly Tao sect hunting a person recently? And if I'm not mistaken, that person is the person in front of me. Is that Martial Emperor Yishiwen? It can't be. Didn't they say that his cultivation is at most in the third realm? Some people remembered the information that they had obtained from the Heavenly Tao sect when they were searching for him. According to the information given by the Heavenly Tao sect, Martial Emperor Yishiwen should be in the third realm. But now it seemed that this wasn't the case at all. Not only was he in the third realm, but he might even be in the fifth realm. Many people suddenly felt somewhat lucky. After receiving the information from the Heavenly Tao sect, many people wanted to help the Heavenly Tao sect and capture Yishiwen in exchange for many rewards from the Heavenly Tao sect. Now that they thought about it, they were really lucky. If they had found Yishiwen before, they wouldn't even know how they died at this time. Damn the Heavenly Tao sect. They simply want us to die. Many people naturally didn't think that Yishiwen had broken through from the third realm to the fifth realm in such a short period of time. That kind of speed was simply impossible no matter how they looked at it. The only possibility was that the Heavenly Tao sect clearly knew about Yishiwen's strength, but they didn't inform them at all and just wanted them to die. Even if they didn't die in Yishiwen's hands, they would become enemies with Yishiwen in the end. Only the Heavenly Tao sect would be happy in the end. Even the Gung Jin Tiger Emperor turned his gaze towards the battle on this side. There seemed to be a bit of surprise in his eyes. He hadn't expected that Yishiwen would be able to display his strength to this extent. Although it wasn't enough to make him feel a huge threat, Yishiwen seemed to be a bit too strong for the fifth realm. Yishiwen had already entered into a combat state at this time. He didn't know that his full strength had shocked many people. In fact, many people had even thought of a lot of nonsense because of this. The Time Beast Emperor was sent flying by Yishiwen's punch. It felt as if all the bones in its body had been completely broken. It wanted to roar and struggle to get out of Yishiwen's attack range, but it was of no use. Yishiwen immediately chased after it. Shwa! The Avicii sword instantly appeared in his hand and suddenly chopped down. It seemed as if the world had suddenly collapsed. The Avicii sword directly chopped down, and all the defenses on the Time Beast Emperor's body collapsed in an instant. It couldn't block the Avicii sword at all. It seemed as if the Avicii sword had directly transformed into a hell and smashed down. Bang! Another loud explosion sound was heard. The Time Beast Emperor's body collapsed on the spot in front of everyone's eyes. It didn't have the ability to resist Yishiwen's sword attack. The law of the time fragment was directly exposed. That huge law was shining brightly in the sky. Haha, it's done. Yishiwen laughed heartily. He stretched out his hand and suddenly grabbed that time fragment. Just as Yishiwen was about to grab this piece of time fragment, another hand grabbed it from another direction. It wanted to grab the time fragment first. Yishiwen suddenly became angry. He had painstakingly killed the Time Beast Emperor, but someone actually wanted to take advantage of the chaos to grab the time fragment. He didn't hesitate at all. The Avicii sword in his hand made a clanging sound and suddenly slashed down. It transformed into a hell, and countless wails spread out. Rumble. The sword light collided with this huge hand. In an instant, the world changed. It seemed as if everything had been blocked by this astonishing collision. Yishiwen felt a formidable power reverberating back at him. Even with his cultivation, his body slightly shook. However, his movements weren't slow, and he instantly grabbed the time fragment in his hand. At this time, he finally had the time to see who had made a move at the critical moment. Chapter 3100. Yishuin turned his gaze and saw a middle-aged man in white clothes looking at him indifferently. He was the one who snatched the time fragment just now. Lord of the Nirvana realm. Yishuin squinted his eyes, and a terrifying cold light burst out from his eyes. He didn't expect the Lord of the Nirvana realm to make a move at such a crucial time. Although he didn't want to fight with these super experts of the Sixth Realm too early, it didn't mean that he would easily give up. It wasn't clear when the Lord of the Nirvana realm had appeared from his original position. He was only a kilometer away from Yishuin. This distance could be covered in a single step for an Emperor, so it wasn't a big deal. The other Emperor Lords originally wanted to fight for it. However, when they saw that the person in front of them was actually the Lord of the Nirvana realm, they immediately extinguished the thought of fighting for it. Compared to the Lord of the Nirvana realm, their strength was far inferior. They also knew this. For the old ancestor of the Time Beast, they could only hope that they could take advantage of it. The real highlight was still the other Time Beast Emperors. Although the Time Beast Emperor that had its time fragment snatched was not dead yet, its strength had already plummeted. Unlike the Emperor Lords who cultivated the laws, they used their own understanding of the Great Way to activate various magical martial arts. Therefore, their strength would not be reduced easily. These Emperor-level creatures were completely different. If their core was snatched away, their strength would plummet even if they didn't die. However, at this time, no one was paying attention to him. Only some peak quasi-emperors were still staring at him. Perhaps they might have slaughtered an Emperor-level creature because of this. Hand over the time fragment, and I will let you live. The Lord of the Nirvana realm looked at Yishuin indifferently and said. Yishuin sneered slightly and said, "Let me live? Ha ha ha." Yishuin laughed loudly. The Lord of the Nirvana realm's expression became colder and colder. He said, "Martial Emperor, don't refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. The Heavenly Sect has also issued a wanted order to me. I don't recommend exchanging your head for a reward from the Heavenly Sect." Exchanging my head for a reward? If you can do it, then you can try. Yishuin's expression was solemn, but he didn't give an inch. The existence of the Sixth Realm wasn't enough to make him turn around and retreat. He really doesn't know his place. The Lord of the Nirvana world coldly glanced at Yishuin. You're just a nobody who has had some fortuitous encounters. But you've dared to oppose our super sections. You really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. The Lord of the Nirvana world was born in a super family of the Fortune Divine Dynasty. It was similar to the Emperor clan of the Myriad of Worlds, the G family. The Lord of the Nirvana world had a noble bloodline. Towards those rogue cultivators, the Lord of the Nirvana world, he had always looked down on them. Compared to the vast factions of these super sects, the loose cultivators' sovereign emperors were simply too lacking. In terms of strength and faction, they were no match for them. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. The Lord of the Nirvana realm said coldly. In an instant, violent waves of Dharma power spread out from his body, instantly creating a huge hole in the sky. Even though he was in the strange and unpredictable Pantheon Palace, his strength was not restricted much. His terrifying strength, which was second only to that of a minor giant, suddenly burst out. Just in time. I also want to see how powerful a level 6 expert is. Yishuin's body was trembling. He wasn't afraid, but he was excited. It was a rare experience to be able to fight with a level 6 expert. Perhaps even the Lord of the Nirvana realm didn't expect that Yishuin, who was nothing in his eyes, would actually use him as a whetstone, a stepping stone for him to advance further and enter the level 6. Otherwise, the murderous intent in his heart would have instantly exploded. Buzz! The Lord of the Nirvana realm's body emitted a strange power, and a terrifying aura surged out. Whoosh! An unimaginable wave broke through the air. In an instant, the Lord of the Nirvana realm had already surpassed the limits of this world. He rushed over with unparalleled speed, and even time and space were affected by his speed. When his speed reached the extreme, it could even climb to the domain of time. His speed was so fast that it was incomprehensible. Many of the sovereigns present couldn't help but take a breath of cold air when they saw this scene. Nirvana scripture. It's really the Nirvana scripture. It's rumored that this scripture describes all the mysteries of speed. The ends of the world are only on the other side. One only needs to take a step to cross from the ends of the world to the ends of the sea. In terms of speed, the Nirvana scripture, cultivated by the Lord of the Nirvana realm, is truly at the peak. Someone exclaimed. The Lord of the Nirvana realm was also a widely famous existence among the sovereigns. Therefore, although many people didn't know the specific content of the Nirvana scripture that he cultivated, they had a rough idea of it. Bang! The Lord of the Nirvana realm's knife hand attack turned into a terrifying wave and directly blasted towards Yishiwen's head. He wanted to kill him completely. At that crucial moment, Yishiwen raised his hand to block this terrifying knife hand attack. Thump, thump, thump. After Yishiwen took a few steps back, he finally couldn't withstand this huge force and was directly sent flying like a meteor. He flew for thousands of miles before finally stopping. Yishiwen only felt that all the blood in his body was surging. After the collision, his blood set off a huge wave. He's not dead. The Lord of the Nirvana realm squinted his eyes. He didn't hold back when he attacked just now. His biggest reliance was the Nirvana scripture that he created. When his speed reached a certain level, it itself was a kind of unparalleled killing power. Even a sovereign couldn't block his attack with his bare hands. However, Yishiwen in front of him blocked his attack with his bare hands. Although he was sent flying, he wasn't injured. In his opinion, this was really too unbelievable. Many of the other sovereigns also widened their eyes. They were very clear about the terror of the Lord of the Nirvana realm. Even the Rain Sovereign and the others who were also at the 6th level couldn't help but look at Yishiwen in a different light. It was really too shocking. The Lord of the Nirvana realm snorted coldly and instantly attacked. When he attacked again, it instantly surpassed the speed of light. In an instant, the timeline was in a mess, and the influence of the strange timeline in the Valley of Time was broken. No one could see his figure at all, and he attacked forcefully. At the same time, Yishiwen forcibly suppressed the blood in his body and suddenly opened his double pupils. This pair of eyes instantly saw through many mysteries of time and space and captured the figure of the Lord of the Nirvana realm. If the Blue-Eye Emperor was here, even if his double pupils could capture the figure of the Lord of the Nirvana realm, it was useless. His speed couldn't catch up with the speed of the Lord of the Nirvana realm. A rainbow bridge appeared under the feet of the Lord of the Nirvana realm. In an instant, his speed had already reached an extreme level. However, Yishiwen was different. When he opened his double pupils, the demon wings behind him suddenly opened, and the power of time was released around his demon wings. The wings of time extended to the entire divine kingdom, and the figure of the Lord of the Nirvana realm stagnated. In an instant, Yishiwen seized the opportunity, and the entire demon wings protected him. Bang! The shocking attack of the Lord of the Nirvana realm directly hit the demon wings. The demon wings that were originally as hard as iron were shaken by this terrifying power, and densely packed cracks instantly appeared. Boom! Such a stalemate only lasted for a moment, and the demon wings immediately collapsed. Just when everyone was shocked by such a collision, they only saw a sword light shooting out from it. The sword light that was condensed from the terrifying evil aura moved slightly, and the entire universe collapsed along with it. It was no longer stable. This sword slashed out from the aftermath of the explosion, and its target was the Lord of the Nirvana realm. Whoosh! The sword light directly swept through the void, leaving behind an endless void crack, and rushed straight into the sky. Rumble! This sword directly slashed the depths of the void in the Pantheon Palace, and a lot of it exploded. The Lord of the Nirvana realm stood still, and it seemed as if he hadn't moved at all. However, everyone knew that he moved at the crucial moment, and he finally dodged this sword attack at the critical moment. On his cheek, a wound appeared and blood spurted out. He can actually injure the Lord of the Nirvana realm. What is his background? Why haven't I heard of him before? Some emperors looked at the scene in front of them in a daze. The endless explosions' aftermath dissipated, and Yi Shiwen's figure was revealed. He was holding a sharp sword in his hand, and that sharp sword seemed to carry the entire Avicii hell. It was extremely terrifying. The Nirvana scripture of the Lord of the Nirvana realm was too fast. It was an ancient scripture that had opened up the extreme speed, but it suffered under Yi Shiwen's hands. It was truly a loss. In fact, he was even injured by Yi Shiwen when he was in a higher realm than Yi Shiwen. If he didn't dodge in time, his chest might have been pierced by Yi Shiwen's sword. The ferocious sword in his hand definitely had such an ability. Even the Gung-Jin Tiger Emperor had a different feeling of respect for Yi Shiwen this time. This person with a mere cultivation of the fifth realm was not that simple, and he faintly felt a faint sense of threat. However, it only took an instant for him to expel it. What kind of joke was this? With his cultivation, how could anyone be a threat to him? You dodged quite quickly. Yi Shiwen grinned. Not only did he not hurt the joy of the Sixth Realm Emperor, but it also seemed to have aroused the fighting spirit in his heart. In his eyes, the Sixth Realm Emperor could also be injured, and it was not a big deal. He wasn't an existence that couldn't be defeated. Very good. In the past 1,000,000 years, you are the only one who can injure me. The Lord of the Nirvana realm's expression didn't change, but everyone could hear the cold, killing intent in his words. After being injured by the Avicii sword, he was thoroughly enraged. Chapter 3101. In the opinion of the Lord of the Nirvana realm, this should have been a piece of cake. Would a mere Emperor Lord of the Fifth Realm dare to fall out with him for a piece of time fragment? He didn't think there was such a possibility. In the situation where the giants of the Seventh Realm couldn't enter due to the agreement, he was almost the strongest among the small group of people. There were people who could make him afraid to attack, but it was definitely not a martial emperor of the Fifth Realm. However, the reality was slapping him in the face. Not only did Yi Shiwen fall out with him, but he couldn't even take it down and was injured. He had been pampered and had never been injured for millions of years. Now that he had broken his rule here, it was undoubtedly a kind of humiliation for him. Whoosh! The Lord of the Nirvana realm took the initiative. His movements were already so fast that people couldn't see him clearly. When he appeared again, he was already in front of Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen wasn't nervous, nor was he afraid. There was only boundless excitement. Clang! The Lord of the Nirvana realm's attack directly blasted in front of Yi Shiwen, but it was blocked by the time robe. However, his attack actually left a mark on Yi Shiwen's time robe, as if it was going to pierce through the time robe. Although the power of the time robe was no longer comparable to when it was at its peak after being broken by the Emperor Primordial Chaos, it was already extremely impressive for the Lord of the Nirvana realm to be able to leave a mark on it. The Emperor Lords that Yi Shiwen encountered in the past could at most break the outermost time domain of the time robe. It was almost impossible for them to leave a mark on the time robe. His speed was too fast. Even if Yi Shiwen could see him, his reaction could barely keep up. It was impossible for him to block every attack, so he could only use the time robe to resist. Moreover, Yi Shiwen didn't intend to just take a beating without fighting back. When he was attacked, Yi Shiwen also performed his attack to the extreme. The Avicii sword in his hand turned into Avicii hell, and he immediately counterattacked the Lord of the Nirvana realm. Facing the Avicii sword that could split the sky, even the Lord of the Nirvana realm didn't dare to casually resist. If he was injured by Yi Shiwen, it would really be a great shame. Because of this, he couldn't attack with all his strength. Facing Yi Shiwen's seemingly injury-for-injury style of fighting, even he was a little startled. Even so, the attacks of the Lord of the Nirvana Shore were still terrifying. Each of his attacks pierced through the divine kingdom of time released by the time magic robe, and they were continuously destroyed by him. His speed had already risen to the extreme. Yi Shiwen increased his speed once again. He unfolded the wings of time and stimulated all kinds of secret techniques. He used the time robe for defense and the Avicii sword for offense. The martial Emperor's seal was ready to be used at any time. He was going to go all out in this ancient war. This intense clash was rarely seen since ancient times. Two sovereign emperors of different cultivation realms could fight to such an extent. Yi Shiwen, who was merely in the fifth realm, was able to fight against the lord of the Permitha continent, who was in the sixth realm. This was enough to prove his tyrannical strength. You know quite a lot of methods, but it's a pity. Do you think that the more you know, the better? Being knowledgeable also means that you aren't skilled, and if you aren't skilled, you will never be able to reach the highest realm. The Lord of the Nirvana realm spoke, mocking him. People like you will never be able to climb to the peak. The Lord of the Permitha continent mocked Yi Shiwen while attacking. In his opinion, although Yi Shiwen had a lot of methods, which made him feel that it was a little tricky, it also meant that Yi Shiwen couldn't climb to the peak of a certain domain. My methods are only known for their speed, but that's enough. There aren't many in the world who can withstand my attacks. Behind the Lord of the Permitha continent, someone was faintly chanting ancient scriptures. It was the Permitha scripture that appeared, and around him, countless fiery red Permitha flowers bloomed, as if they were going to bloom all over the heavens and the realms at this moment. Every sovereign emperor can reach this stage because they have walked to the peak of a certain path. Everyone is different. You aren't me. How do you know that my path can't reach the peak? Yi Shiwen wasn't moved. The Lord of the Permitha continent's words couldn't shake his firm heart. Ever since he had embarked on the path of cultivation, people had always said that his cultivation was heterogeneous and not refined. However, he didn't think so. All roads lead to Rome. Even the celestial masters didn't dare to say that they could understand everything in the world. Even they didn't dare to say that this path would be impossible. Others couldn't walk it, but he could. It might be the truth for others, but it was a fallacy for him. He naturally had his own insistence. What are you proud of? If my realm wasn't lower than yours, I would kill you like slaughtering a chicken or a dog. Yi Shiwen's words were also an unceremonious counterattack. The Lord of the Permitha continent snorted coldly. His expression became even more indifferent, and he was angry in his heart. Although he admitted that Yi Shiwen was indeed difficult to deal with, how could it be possible that he could kill someone in the same realm as him, like slaughtering a chicken or a dog? Then who was he? Who did he think he was? You're just relying on your sharp tongue. After the Lord of the Permitha continent finished speaking, he instantly attacked again. He was extremely annoyed by Yi Shiwen's words. He instantly attacked, and his speed rose to the extreme. This time, it was even more terrifying than before. The speed of both of them was very fast. Every time they collided, it would only be a short moment. In fact, many people might not even be able to see their movements clearly. Their figures would only be revealed after every collision. Both of them were chasing each other in the sky, and they were fighting. Yi Shiwen felt that the Lord of the Permitha continent had become powerful and terrifying. In order to kill Yi Shiwen, the Lord of the Permitha continent had used all his means. Boom! The Lord of the Permitha continent's knife-hand attack arrived in front of Yi Shiwen. The first layer of demon wings that Yi Shiwen used to defend himself was instantly destroyed. After that, the knife-hand attack didn't lose any momentum. It continued to bombard Yi Shiwen. Even the time God's kingdom of time couldn't resist it. It collapsed in front of his eyes. Bang! There was a huge roar, and this knife-hand attack directly bombarded Yi Shiwen's time god's robe. This was already the Lord of the Permitha continent's method of unleashing his speed to the extreme. He had indeed walked to the point where only a few people could match up to him. Just a simple knife-hand attack could erupt with a terrifying attack that could penetrate the world. Each time was more terrifying than the previous one. In the battle with Yi Shiwen, although Yi Shiwen tried his best, he was still at a disadvantage. For others, this was enough to shock them. A fifth realm expert was fighting a sixth realm expert, and he wasn't at a disadvantage. This was simply a miracle. However, for Yi Shiwen, it wasn't enough. As expected, when facing a sixth realm expert, he could only protect himself. Yi Shiwen let out a long roar, and all the aura on his body spread out. In an instant, it transformed into 3,000 martial arts. Each martial art was like the will of the world, and it instantly drowned the world. There were cracks in space everywhere. Under the 3,000 martial arts, it completely collapsed. However, the Lord of the Permethot continent didn't stop at all. He directly killed his way into the 3,000 martial arts. Every knife hand attack could completely destroy a martial art. It was as if he was dancing, and the world trembled under his attacks. Many emperors in the distance felt their scalps go numb. What a terrifying method. He had really evolved his speed into endless attacking methods. He wasn't just dodging, and he had even touched the edge of time. The Lord of the Permethot continent was indeed terrifying. No wonder he could be so arrogant. The 3,000 martial arts that he released were broken by the Lord of the Permethot continent, but Yi Shiwen was still calm and didn't panic. His eyes had already turned into double pupils. Although this kind of magical power consumed a lot of spiritual power, Yi Shiwen, who had a complete level 2 dragon vein and an incomplete level 2 dragon vein, wasn't afraid of such consumption at all. The incomplete level 2 dragon vein was constantly burning, and the spiritual energy directly replenished Yi Shiwen's spiritual power. This unparalleled battle was still going on. Other than the time Beast Emperor Old Ancestor, the battle between Yi Shiwen and the Lord of the Permethot continent was the most eye-catching. Both of them displayed power that was far beyond everyone's imagination. The other Sixth Realm experts didn't show any signs of interfering. At this time, they all wanted to see what other methods the Lord of the Permethot continent had. After all, only by knowing oneself and knowing the enemy could one emerge victorious. Especially since they were about to become competitors, there was no harm in knowing more. It would be best if both sides suffered losses. It seemed as if this battle would continue until the end of time. Yi Shiwen suddenly moved. He didn't withdraw the 3,000 martial arts. Instead, he pinched a seal, and the martial emperor's seal rotated for a moment. Then, it instantly flew out and smashed towards the Lord of the Permethot who was in the middle of the battle. Boom! In an instant, the Lord of the Permethot continent, who was originally in the midst of battle, was finally hit. He staggered and almost fell. The defense on his body was directly broken by the martial emperor's seal. His movement suddenly stopped, and it was almost interrupted. Now's the time, Yi Shiwen roared. He was completely suppressed from the start, but he didn't give up. On the contrary, his dual pupil was always open, and he saw all the movements of the Lord of the Permethot continent in his eyes. The mysterious space madly calculated, capturing the trajectory of the Lord of the Permethot continent's movements, and analyzing where he might appear in the next instant. Yi Shiwen was like a supercomputer, and he calculated all the attacks, which was why he had such a shocking attack. Just for this attack, he consumed at least half of the level 3 dragon vein, and his wealth was like flowing water. But he felt that it was worth it. It was really worth it. Even if he had to consume another half of the level 3 dragon vein, Yi Shiwen wouldn't hesitate at all. Yi Shiwen, who had been waiting for a long time, successfully seized this opportunity. Golden light filled the sky under his feet, and a shocking sword light with unparalleled power slashed towards the Lord of the Permethot continent. Pucci, the sword light pierced through his right shoulder. Chapter 3102. Blood spurted out and scattered in all directions along with the sword chi. Every drop of blood that fell turned into a vast ocean, dropping down as heavy as an ancient divine mountain. Everyone was stunned because no one thought that Yi Shiwen could injure the Lord of the Nirvana realm, who was in the 6th level. Among sovereign lords, the difference of one level was like the difference between heaven and earth. It was impossible to surpass one's level unless one had some heaven-defying technique or a heavenly venerable's weapon. However, Yi Shiwen didn't have any of these. He injured the Lord of the Nirvana realm by himself. Blood flowed from the Lord of the Nirvana realm's right shoulder, and a huge bloody hole appeared. At the edge of this bloody hole, the murderous aura was burning like a flame. The physical body of Sovereign Lord was already indestructible and untainted by karma. No rule, magic power, or martial arts could leave a mark on the physical body of a sovereign lord. Only magic power that was equally powerful could leave a mark. And the Avicii sword had such an ability. He actually did it. The Rain Emperor narrowed his eyes. He was obviously very surprised. As someone who was on equal footing with him, he was very clear about the strength of the Lord of the Nirvana realm. Yi Shiwen could injure the Lord of the Nirvana realm with the strength of the 5th level. It was indeed impressive. No wonder the Heavenly Tao sect had to pay a huge price to eliminate him. When he cultivated to the 6th level, wouldn't he be invincible? Perhaps even the giants of the 7th level couldn't defeat him. The gap between the 7th level and the 6th level was even greater than the gap between the 5th and 6th level. It was even more of a miracle. Even the Gungjin Tiger Emperor was shocked. Yi Shiwen's combat strength had indeed shocked these people who thought that they were superior, especially when they felt a sense of danger. Yi Shiwen was no longer an enemy that they could look down on. However, many people also realized that the Lord of the Nirvana realm definitely wouldn't let Yi Shiwen go easily. The Lord of the Nirvana realm's aura didn't weaken at all after being hit by Yi Shiwen's sword. On the contrary, it expanded at a shocking speed like a balloon. As if a high explosive had exploded, the aura of countless rules gushed out of his body and turned into divine chains that expanded between heaven and earth. Originally, he didn't plan to use his full strength so early. However, he was completely enraged by Yi Shiwen now, and had to kill him no matter what. Otherwise, he would be angered to death. Yi Shiwen just coldly looked at the Lord of the Permitha. His hair was thick, and his eyes had a double pupil magical ability. It was flowing with flowing lights and vibrant colors. His sleeves fluttered in the wind, and there was an indescribable transcendence about him. He faintly merged with the world. The martial emperor's seal was rotating above his head. Then, the 3,000 martial principles transformed into silk threads and hung down to protect him. You have completely infuriated me. You will definitely die. No one can save you. The Lord of the Nirvana realm coldly looked at Yi Shiwen. A grim smile appeared on his face. He had already reached his limit. However, just when everyone thought that an intense battle was about to erupt between the two of them, the entire world suddenly shook violently as if the entire world was about to collapse in the next second. Roar! An incomparably loud roar spread in the void. That terrifying roar turned into sound waves that swept out instantly. A few peak quasi-emperors were carelessly swept by it and turned into a cloud of blood mist on the spot. Even their primordial spirits were annihilated in an instant. They didn't even have the chance to revive. Everyone's gaze landed on the huge time Beast Emperor Old Ancestor. Sure enough, that time Beast Emperor Ancestor was shaking violently. His originally glossy skin began to show wrinkles. Angel's Decay. He's entering the Angel's Decay state. Many people were shocked. Even an Emperor would rarely see an Emperor-level creature enter the Angel's Decay state in their lifetime, let alone an Emperor-level creature of the 9th realm. Before the end of their lifespan, Emperor-level creatures would find a hidden place. Most of them would die in their ancestral tombs, so outsiders wouldn't know about it. His appearance, which hadn't changed for countless years, actually began to age crazily in the eyes of everyone in this short period of time. It seemed as if he had walked through the path of his entire life in just a few dozen breaths of time. From his peak to extreme aging, it only took a few dozen breaths of time. A terrifying aura rose in the void. Many people had been hiding for a long time. Now that this moment had finally arrived, they absolutely couldn't let go of this opportunity, no matter how many opportunities there were. A rare look of hesitation appeared on the Lord of the Permitha's face. On one side was a super strong enemy that he had to kill. On the other side was the 9th realm time Beast Emperor that he had been waiting for a long time. Even if the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor was also coveting it, he didn't think of giving up. In the surroundings, the experts, especially the Emperor-level experts, all stared at the time Beast Emperor Ancestor with starry eyes. The other time Beast Emperors and Time Beasts also rushed towards the cage with the word forbidden frantically. They wanted to protect it. This was the final stage. The contest between the two sides had finally reached the time to decide the victor. Humph! The Lord of the Permitha could only snort coldly in the end. He looked at Yi Shiwen with hatred. In the end, he still chose the time Beast Emperor Ancestor between the two. Such a choice didn't seem to be difficult for him. Relatively speaking, the time Beast Emperor Ancestor was more important. This was related to whether he could advance further or not. Roar! The time Beast Emperor Ancestor seemed to have reached the most critical moment. He was about to undergo nirvana. However, he was still very unwilling. It seemed as if he was carrying out his final struggle. However, the word forbidden was firmly suppressing his magic power. He didn't know who had arranged it. It could even suppress this ultimate monster of the ninth realm. It was incomparably terrifying. Yi Shiwen heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, he also felt that it was a pity. He had originally wanted to fight with the Lord of the Permitha. Even if he wasn't his opponent, he could still use him as a whetstone. After fighting with the Lord of the Nirvana realm for such a short period of time, he felt that he was about to break through. It had been a long time since he had encountered such a battle where life and death were decided in an instant. It was a battle that required extreme precision. Instead, it aroused the ambition in his heart. Roar! The time Beast Emperor Ancestor roared for the last time. In the end, he could only sit down. Everyone could clearly see that his originally majestic body had not only become old, but also shriveled. It seemed as if the chi and blood in his body couldn't be maintained and collapsed. The energy within his flesh and blood had been sucked dry in an instant. It seemed as if a terrifying power had been extracted from his body. Many emperors couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva when they saw this scene. For experts at their level, death seemed to be a very distant thing. They were used to seeing life and death. However, they still couldn't help but suck in a cold breath when they saw this scene. What was even more terrifying were those emperor-level creatures. They were different from the emperors. As long as the emperors knew their place and didn't suffer a calamity, they could be said to be eternal. However, they were different. Regardless of whether they struggled or not, they would eventually die when their time came. Why did they take such a huge risk to enter the Pan-Heavenly Palace? Wasn't it to find a way to escape from the cycle of life and death? It was rumored that Pan-Heavenly Venerate had the method to cut off one's Tao and reconfirm one's Tao. This was what they cared about the most. That kind of desire wasn't something that emperors could understand. Anyone who stood in their way would be torn apart by them. Now that they saw the time Beast Emperor Ancestor's death, it was as if they could see the scene of their deaths in the future. The fear of death suddenly surged out from the bottom of their hearts and instantly covered their entire bodies, causing them to shiver. Even the lofty existence of the ninth realm was about to die. In the face of death, everyone was equal, except for those emperors who cultivated laws. If it weren't for the attribute of immortality, the speed of growth of emperors wouldn't be able to compare to the emperor-level creatures who were born with invincible divine abilities. The fortune god dynasty wouldn't have been able to suppress everything. If the collective goal of these emperor-level creatures was to find a way to escape from the cycle of life and death, then many emperors would destroy this opportunity as long as it was possible. They wouldn't let these emperor-level creatures obtain this method. He's dead. Go! No one knew who shouted. Immediately, everyone rushed out as if they had been released from their imprisonment. The Gung Metal Tiger Emperor, who was already prepared, took the lead. His figure instantly disappeared, and when he reappeared, he was already at the edge of the forbidden cage. The other emperors and peak quasi-emperors also flew towards the forbidden cage in an instant. Roar! With a terrifying roar, an incomparably powerful, ferocious beast appeared behind the Gungjin Beast Emperor. It was his spiritual body. The Gungjin White Tiger roared fiercely and pounced on the cage with the word forbidden in it. Bang! The forbidden cage shook violently, but this was just the beginning. Immediately after, other emperors followed at the same time. Although everyone was very anxious, at the same time, they were very clear that at this time, they had to work together and break the forbidden cage first. As for who would be able to obtain the time fragment of the time beast emperor ancestor, that was a matter for later. Very quickly, the Lord of the Nirvana, sure, also joined in. With a dragon rise and phoenix fall, he instantly arrived in front of the forbidden cage before everyone else, and directly attacked the forbidden cage. Although the forbidden cage was very sturdy, and no one knew who had arranged it, it couldn't withstand the simultaneous attack of so many emperors, and cracks began to appear. "It's my turn." Yishuin took a step forward, but he didn't join the army. Instead, he directly appeared in front of a time beast emperor. Chapter 3103. This time Beast Emperor was just about to go and assist the others in resisting the surprise attack of the other emperors and emperors. However, Yishuin landed in front of it in a flash. Roar! The time Beast Emperor immediately reacted. It opened its bloody mouth and roared at Yishuin. Its huge body was like an ancient divine mountain, and it launched an attack towards Yishuin. A terrifying aura of destruction rushed towards Yishuin. The speed of the time Beast Emperor was extremely fast. The speed of the law of speed could reach the edge of the law of time. Conversely, the law of time could also reach the edge of the law of speed. Therefore, among the experts who control the law of time, there were many whose speed was at the peak. The law of time could even change the surrounding time, so that the flow of time around them would become faster, indirectly increasing their own speed. This time Beast Emperor had obviously touched the edge of this level. The flow of time around him was astonishingly fast. For other Emperor-level creatures, such an opponent who could be fast or slow was undoubtedly very difficult to deal with. Unfortunately, it encountered Yishuin. Yishuin had already comprehended space from speed a long time ago, and he had comprehended time from space. So, his comprehension of time law wasn't inferior to that of the time Beast Emperor. In fact, his comprehension of time law was even better than that of the time Beast Emperor. Bang! The astonishing attack of the time Beast Emperor was blocked by Yishuin in an instant. Thump, thump, thump. The time Beast Emperor was shocked to find that it was the one who launched the attack, but in the end, it was the one who was sent flying. He suddenly opened his eyes wide. He hadn't noticed anything when he saw Yishuin fighting against the Lord of the Nirvana realm. After all, Yishuin was in a disadvantageous position while fighting against the Lord of the Nirvana realm. He had only guessed how tyrannical Yishuin's strength was. But now that they were fighting, it discovered that the gap between them was too big. As a third realm emperor level creature, the gap between it and Yishuin was too big. It took the initiative to launch the attack, but it was sent flying by Yishuin's terrifying power. Interesting. Hand over the time fragment in your body. Yishuin laughed heartily. He didn't crazily fight over the time fragments inside the body of the time Beast Emperor ancestor like everyone else. That was because the battle over there was too intense. So, it was better to wait for a while than to fight over the time fragments with everyone else. The other time Beast Emperors had also become Yishuin's targets. To others, it was an extremely terrifying time Beast Emperor. It was a powerful existence that could fight against 2 to 3 sovereign monarchs. It was an existence that had truly fused the power of time into its divine ability. However, it was nothing in front of Yishuin. The power of time that the other party was so proud of was not unfamiliar to Yishuin. It was not a domain that he had never come into contact with. Boom! Above Yishuin's head, the Martial Emperor's seal started to spin. 3,000 martial principles suddenly turned into countless martial wills. They covered the sky and the earth, directly submerging the world. Previously, the Nirvana Lord was able to freely enter and exit this wave of attacks. Almost everyone thought that the 3,000 martial principles were just SOSO. In fact, this third realm time Beast Emperor could almost feel the terror of the 3,000 martial principles in an instant. He had to use all his strength to block 1 or 2 of them. When the remaining 3,000 martial principles erupted, they instantly submerged him. At this moment, he finally understood how powerful and terrifying this magical power was. However, Yishuan's martial power was still shallow. Therefore, he couldn't display the most terrifying power when facing the Lord of the Nirvana realm. Even so, the Lord of the Nirvana realm, who was at the 6th realm, had suffered a big loss. Every martial principle was almost equivalent to Yi Shiwen's full-strength attack. When these 3,000 martial principles were completely unleashed, their power was astonishing. They completely submerged the Time Beast Emperor. Roar! The Time Beast Emperor roared again and again. In a collision of this level, his subordinates were completely useless. Yi Shiwen could kill a large group of quasi-emperor level time beasts with a flip of his hand. If they rushed forward, they would only be courting death. They wouldn't be of any use at all. The time domain around him had long been fragmented. He was completely unable to organize an adequate defense. Crash! The martial emperor's seal suddenly smashed down. It was as if Mount Tai was pressing down on him. Boom! The martial emperor's seal smashed directly on the head of the Time Beast Emperor. The Time Beast Emperor tried to use the law of time to slow down the speed of the martial emperor's seal so that it could escape. However, it was of no use. The law of time had lost its effect on the martial emperor's seal. It should be said that the 3,000 martial principles of the martial emperor's seal contained a part of the law of time. This degree of reversal of the flow of time couldn't affect it at all. Bang! The head of the Time Beast Emperor was smashed into pieces on the spot. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere. The Time Beast Emperor kept retreating. Just as it was planning to regroup, an astonishing sword light with peerless attack power slashed down. Poochie! The Time Beast Emperor couldn't resist such power and was cut in half. Then a big hand reached out and grabbed the time fragments in the body of the Time Beast Emperor. It was as if it had grabbed countless worlds. Then it grabbed the time fragments in the body of the Time Beast Emperor and grabbed them in its hand. This time fragment was the origin core of the Time Beast clan. It couldn't resist at all when Yi Shiwen directly grabbed it. The spirit attached to it was instantly eliminated. The Time Beast Emperor died on the spot. Then, its body was grabbed by Yi Shiwen on the spot. A Time Beast Emperor was killed in an instant when it was facing Yi Shiwen's all-out attack. Yi Shiwen's terrifying combat power was displayed incisively and vividly. However, at this time, everyone's eyes were focused on the forbidden prison cage. No one paid attention to this side. Otherwise, they might be scared to death. This was much faster than when Yi Shiwen had killed the Time Beast Emperor of the 5th realm. At this time, the situation was already chaotic. There were fights everywhere. No one could care about this side. Yi Shiwen was also like a fish in water, shuttling through these chaotic battlefields. In any case, as long as he didn't move in the direction of the forbidden prison cage, the other emperors wouldn't attack him even if they saw him. That was because everyone had seen the battle between him and the Lord of the Permitha. Although Yi Shiwen had fallen into a disadvantageous position, everyone could see that he was definitely a troublesome existence. He couldn't be dealt with by ordinary people. If they got entangled with him and missed the most crucial moment, they would really cry their eyes out. Bang! Yi Shiwen's sword slashed down and beheaded another Time Beast Emperor. The time fragment in its body was completely grabbed into its body. The situation was chaotic. In just a short time, countless cracks of various sizes appeared on the forbidden prison cage. This forbidden prison cage was very terrifying. The laws inside were also very ingenious. It borrowed the power of the Time Beast Emperor to imprison itself. It constantly extracted the vitality of the Time Beast Emperor to replenish the consumption of the forbidden prison cage. If the Time Beast Emperor was at his peak, no one could break the forbidden prison cage. Otherwise, those Time Beast Emperors would have already rescued him. It was only now that the Time Beast Emperor had experienced the angel decay. His vitality was declining, and he couldn't maintain it anymore. Only then did the cracks appear. As the Time Beast Emperor's power gradually weakened, more and more cracks appeared. At this time, no one was in the mood to pay attention to Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen took advantage of this period of time like a fish in water. He hunted down emperors everywhere. It wasn't just time beast emperors. He even killed 2 emperors from other domains. In just a short time, he had already killed 6 emperors. Among them were 4-time beast emperors and 2 beast emperors from other domains. Even if the other emperors saw this, they would turn a blind eye. After all, the emperors and emperors were enemies to begin with. These emperors wanted to rule the world again and rule the Fortune God dynasty. It didn't stop even for a day. The battle between the 2 sides didn't stop for even a moment. It would only be possible if one of them died. Bang! Finally, an incomparably loud roar sounded. The forbidden prison cage collapsed. The forbidden word turned into a character and turned into a ball of light. It was about to disappear into the sky. At this time, several figures chased after it. Many people knew that this forbidden word was also a good thing. It was extraordinary to be able to imprison a terrifying existence of the 9th realm. Naturally, many people knew the value of this forbidden word. If it wasn't for the fact that they had to choose between the forbidden word and the time beast emperor, perhaps even the gung metal tiger emperor would come a fight for it. Only a few emperors and emperors who felt that they didn't have much hope would choose to fight for the forbidden word. However, before they could catch up to the forbidden word, a figure flew out at lightning speed. In an instant, everyone could only see his back. That pair of incomparably huge wings was like a pair of wings that covered the sky. What, it's him! So fast! Those few figures didn't expect that the first person to catch up would be none other than Yishuan, who had been drifting behind them. Damn it! Why didn't you fight for the time fragment? Why did you come to fight with us? All of a sudden, these sovereign emperors were enraged, and they immediately unleashed astonishing attacks towards Yishuan. However, their attacks were useless. They were all blocked by Yishuan. Chapter 3104. Their attacks were earth-shattering, but in front of Yishuan, it seemed to be nothing. As Yishuan blocked the attacks of the many sovereign emperors, he reached out and grabbed the seal talisman. His speed was the fastest. It could even be said that he had been waiting for the seal talisman to fly out. This seal talisman was so powerful that it couldn't be defeated. Hence, when it flew out, it had already been activated. After unfolding the wings of time, Yishuan's speed reached its peak. It wouldn't be a problem for him to escape from a 6th realm Emperor Lord, let alone the others. They could only watch helplessly as Yishuan grabbed the seal talisman. However, just as Yishuan grabbed the stop character charm, a barrier suddenly appeared on his arm. This stop character charm extended its barrier to Yishuan's body. Everyone had seen the power of the seal talisman when it imprisoned the time beast emperor old ancestor. Naturally, they knew how powerful it was. At this time, seeing this scene, they couldn't help but laugh loudly. Who asked him to be so arrogant? Now he should sprain his waist. However, before they could finish laughing, they saw an amazing sword light appearing on Yishuan's arm. The sword light turned into countless sharp swords and slashed out. Those enchantments had yet to imprison Yishuan at a deeper level. They were completely shattered by the sword chi that erupted from Yishuan's hand. Yishuan also had a deep understanding of the Tao of Seals. He had already reached this level. So, he didn't only have a superficial understanding of any kind of magical power. Although the Tao of Seals was powerful, once it succeeded, its power would be limitless. For example, this seal talisman could even imprison a 9th realm Emperor Lord if it circulated continuously. However, if it wasn't activated, there wouldn't be too much of a problem. For example, Yishuan seemed to be extremely fast when he sealed the Jade Eye Emperor, but in fact he had to first suppress the Jade Eye Emperor before he could seal it. Hence, Yishuan guessed that the person who could seal the time Beast Emperor Old Ancestor was at least a 9th realm existence, or even a heavenly venerable. Considering that the time Beast Emperor was also difficult to find in the same realm, the person who sealed it was most likely a heavenly venerable expert. Hence, their expectations were quickly dashed. These seals and boundaries couldn't affect Yishuan at all. The radiance of the seal character surged out of his hand, and soon, the banned character was suppressed and absorbed into his body. At the same time, the mysterious space in Yi Shiwen's body began to frantically analyze the various ways in the word forbidden. His own understanding of the Tao of sealing was also advancing by leaps and bounds. At the same time, he had two dragon veins in his body. Now, he was even richer, so he was not stingy with his crazy consumption. These sovereign emperors finally gave up when they saw Yi Shiwen put away the forbidden character talisman. They didn't have the strength of the Lord of the Permitha and the others. They didn't dare to force Yi Shiwen to hand over the forbidden character talisman. At the same time, on the other side, the fight for the position of the time Beast Emperor was getting more and more intense. It had almost entered a white-hot stage. In particular, the competition between the sovereign emperors of the Sixth Realm was even more intense. Both sides were surrounding the time Beast Emperor, and everyone had entered a state of madness. Seeing the time Beast Emperor in front of them, no one could remain calm. In particular, the competition between the sovereign emperors of the Sixth Realm was even more earth-shattering. They were the ones closest to the time Beast Emperor, and the others didn't dare to approach at all. There were already a few sovereign emperors of the First Realm and Second Realm who wanted to take away the corpse of the time Beast Emperor, while the sovereign emperors of the Sixth Realm were entangled with each other. However, on this issue, the sovereign emperors of the Sixth Realm were surprisingly on the same side. When they saw someone doing so, they instantly changed their confrontation to a joint attack. Hence, those sovereign emperors were completely tragically defeated. Their souls were directly destroyed. In this pan-heavenly palace, these sovereign emperors of the Sixth Realm were already the most terrifying existences. After a few such incidents, no one dared to try it again. At least, no one dared to act recklessly before a better opportunity came out. Everything was just as Yi Shiwen had guessed. These sovereign emperors attacked each other and delayed each other. No one had a way to take away the corpse of the time Beast Emperor in the first place. Hence, Yi Shiwen didn't have to worry. He could slowly refine the talisman next to him. However, his mind was always on the battlefield, and he didn't relax in the slightest. As long as there was the slightest problem, he would immediately take action. At the same time, he began to refine the time fragments in the body of the time Beast Emperor. These were almost the most precious things in the body of the time Beast Emperor. They were also the source of the time Beast Emperor. Yi Shiwen continued to comprehend these time fragments while injecting magic power into them. Immediately after, Yi Shiwen clearly felt that the time around him instantly accelerated. Many people noticed the changes around Yi Shiwen, and they immediately felt that it was strange. They didn't know what was going on with him. However, many people could also see that the flow of time around Yi Shiwen was completely different from theirs. It was crazily increasing by hundreds or even thousands of times. This kind of flow of time caused the space to be unable to withstand it, and huge cracks appeared. However, Yi Shiwen didn't have the slightest intention of making a move. Instead, he stood quietly in the sky. He was taking advantage of this opportunity to comprehend. He used the time fragments to accelerate the flow of time around him, so that 1 second in the outside world would be thousands, or even tens of thousands of times in the inside world. This would buy him enough time. The time law fragment was indeed very amazing. This was the core of the origin that could only be born in the body of the time Beast Emperor. As time passed, Yi Shiwen's comprehension of the time law had made great progress. Even his comprehension of the other laws was improving at an astonishing speed. Because of the flow of time, only a short period of time had passed in the outside world. However, for Yi Shiwen, several years had actually passed. Yi Shiwen's aura became more and more mysterious. The Mingxin ancient tree loomed behind him, stabilizing his mind. He was now multitasking. On one hand, he had to comprehend the time law. On the other hand, he had to comprehend the other laws. At the same time, he had to comprehend the repair method of the time robe. Each of these required a huge amount of mental energy. Even the Emperor Realm experts couldn't bear this kind of comprehension. If it wasn't for the help of the Mingxin ancient tree, perhaps his mind would have already collapsed and couldn't hold on. However, Yi Shiwen did it at the same time. Yi Shiwen felt that he had already touched the threshold of the Sixth Realm. In fact, the barrier was getting weaker and weaker. It seemed that he could break through to the sixth realm at any time. Originally, he thought that it was very likely that he wouldn't be able to enter the sixth realm in the Pan-Heavenly Palace because there was too little time. However, it was different now. With the help of the time fragment, he had already saved a lot of time. In this respect, the time fragment was worthy of being one of the heavenly treasures that many Emperor Realm experts and Emperor-level life forms wanted to fight for. Bang! However, just as Yishiwen was planning to continue his cultivation, the time fragment in his body collapsed on the spot. Yishiwen had previously injected his spiritual power and frantically stimulated this time fragment. He had already consumed the potential of the time fragment in a short period of time. This time fragment was not unlimited. It was impossible for Yishiwen to continue to consume it like this. Even Yishiwen couldn't help but feel a little distressed. How much time had passed, and he had already consumed a time fragment. It should be known that he only had 5 time fragments in total. Now, one of them had already broken. It doesn't matter. At this time, I have to strike while the iron is hot. The sixth realm is already close at hand. Yishiwen gritted his teeth and said fiercely. This was because he understood that only by truly entering the sixth realm could he participate in this competition. In particular, among the many competitions in the Pan-Heavenly Palace, the fifth realm was nothing. Only the experts of the sixth realm were qualified to compete. Now that the situation was urgent, even the people of heavenly Taoism had infiltrated on a large scale. He had to obtain sufficient strength before that. Yishiwen immediately injected his spiritual power into another time fragment. Then, the time around him that had just stopped increased rapidly again. The flow of time was so fast that people could not see his figure clearly. They only felt that his figure was becoming more and more blurred, as if he had disappeared in the long river of time. At the same time, the incomplete level 2 dragon vein in Yishiwen's body was also constantly burning at an astonishing speed. Yishiwen's understanding of the Great Way was also increasing at an astonishing speed. The barrier of the sixth realm was also weakening at an astonishing speed. There was also hope, and he could even feel that the realm of the sixth realm was right in front of him. On the other side, the battle at this time was even more intense. Everyone was going crazy, and no one cared about Yishiwen at all, especially the few experts of the sixth realm who had been watching Yishiwen. When they saw this scene, they could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. In their eyes, Yishiwen was undoubtedly a great threat. Although he could not defeat them, he was enough to threaten their existence. It was really good that such a person did not participate in this, and the others did not dare to approach this peerless evil star who had just fought fiercely. Therefore, there was directly an empty space around Yishiwen, allowing him to freely comprehend and constantly consume time fragments to improve. The incomplete level 2 dragon vein in Yishiwen's body was fading at an astonishing speed. The originally solid body also began to become transparent. These were all signs of consumption to the limit, and the time fragments on Yishiwen's body also exploded one after another. The second piece, the third piece, until the third piece, Yishiwen's aura finally completed the transformation. A majestic and terrifying aura swept out from his body. The sixth realm. Chapter 3105. Yishiwen felt that everyone around him was moving in slow motion. Each movement took a long time. He knew that it was not that everyone had slowed down, but that he had sped up. The time law affected the speed law. It was an extremely powerful force. Suddenly, his comprehension seemed to have broken through a bottleneck. His realm had broken through. After burning almost an entire incomplete level 2 dragon vein and destroying the third time law fragment, he had finally stepped into the sixth realm. Having stepped into the sixth realm, he was already considered one of the most powerful people in the Pan-Heavenly Palace. He had truly stepped into the peak. Yishiwen immediately swallowed the level 2 dragon vein that was almost completely transparent. The remaining massive amount of spiritual energy was instantly transformed into Yi Shiwen's spiritual power. This allowed him to completely stabilize his realm, even though he had just broken through. He truly had the combat power of the sixth realm. The spiritual power of an Emperor Lord also needed to be accumulated. It was impossible to immediately have that kind of combat power after breaking through. Only by devouring the dragon vein, which was a great supplement, could he replenish his spiritual power in a short period of time and reach the same level as his cultivation. Boom! Yi Shiwen's aura finally couldn't take it anymore and spread out. With his feet as the core, the void within a radius of 100 miles was completely shattered. Countless chaotic turbulences were drawn out. For a moment, even the many Emperor Lords and Emperor-level creatures who were fighting fiercely were alarmed. Yi Shiwen almost immediately restrained his aura. He didn't intend to attack immediately. He wanted to continue breaking through. He still had 2 time law fragments and a complete level 2 dragon vein left. They could still push his cultivation by a large margin. It wasn't just the current situation. With his current cultivation, he didn't even care about the Lord of the Nirvana realm. They were nothing to him. Right now, he was only second to the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor and was about to surpass the Lord of the Nirvana realm. Other than the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor, no one else could make him fear them. And he wanted to take advantage of this time to raise his cultivation again in one go. By then, he would even be able to compete with the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor. However, it was not possible to completely surpass him. There was too little time. Just 2 time law fragments couldn't do it. He needed more time. However, something strange happened when everyone was completely unprepared. The old ancestor of the time, Beast Emperor, who seemed to have passed away in meditation, suddenly opened his eyes. An unimaginable fluctuation erupted from his body, surpassing all the terrifying power in the world. Bang! 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 This horrifying aura spread out along with the power of time. Some peak quasi-emperors and time beasts simply couldn't dodge in time and were swept away. They were instantly blasted into pieces, flesh and blood splattering everywhere. Even those sovereign emperors were sent flying one by one. This terrifying power of time contained too much terrifying power, causing them to be heavily injured on the spot and sent flying. Even the Sixth Realm sovereign emperors were no exception. They were the closest, so they were the first to be hit. At the same time, the force was also the heaviest. Dense cracks appeared on their bodies on the spot, and they almost exploded like those peak quasi-emperors. What? How is that possible? Isn't he already dead? The Nirvana Lord's face was filled with shock and anger. He never thought that at this point, there would be such a loophole. Final radiance of the setting sun. The War Eagle Emperor roared and roared. His eyes were so vicious that he could almost see that this was the final radiance of the Time Beast Emperor. The Time Beast Emperor wasn't dead at all. On the contrary, he was still in the state of accumulating power for the final attack. He had been waiting for this moment to severely injure everyone. However, before he finished speaking, he only saw a big hand directly grabbing his throat at lightning speed. This big hand surpassed the speed of light. Time was in a mess, and the naked eye couldn't see it at all. The War Eagle Emperor's eyes cultivated a special magical power, which was also a special magical power of his race. Therefore, he was able to capture some traces, but it was of no use. Because his body couldn't keep up with such speed, he could only watch as the big hand penetrated through layers of space and instantly grabbed his neck. Bang! Everyone only heard a loud roar, and then they saw the majestic Sixth Realm War Eagle Emperor's neck and head were crushed. Moreover, his primordial spirit was destroyed together. His primordial spirit was bound, and he couldn't even escape. He was instantly destroyed. At this time, everyone finally saw clearly who made the move. It turned out to be the Time Beast Emperor, in existence at the Ninth Realm. As soon as he made his move, it shocked the world. Although the War Eagle Emperor was far less powerful than in existence at the Ninth Realm, he was still an Emperor-level life form. However, it was completely useless. He was killed in an instant. This was in existence at the Ninth Realm level. At this time, everyone finally understood why an emperor at the Ninth Realm level could dominate the world. In the absence of celestial venerables, They could dominate the world. The difference was really too great. They were both emperor level, but the difference in strength between them was like the difference between a baby and an emperor. Everyone was completely terrified. Their hair stood on end, and their backs were completely soaked. It was as if they had been fished out of the water. Just that short attack made everyone feel like they had fallen into hell. Were they really going to die? Everyone felt like turning around and fleeing. Even the Gung Jin Tiger Emperor was no exception. No matter how arrogant he was, he also understood how terrifying a ninth realm time beast emperor ancestor was. Perhaps only someone like his master, Yi Huang, could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Compared to these old antiques who dominated the world, people like them still had a long way to go. However, just as everyone was about to turn around and flee, they were surprised to find that the terrifying attack had finally stopped. The time beast emperor ancestor, who had just attacked in horror, didn't make any further moves. His body aged even more, and some of the cells and blood that were originally still alive had been consumed in an instant. It's really the last radiance of the setting sun, and it's the last attack. Everyone couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. It turned out that the time beast emperor ancestor was not really resurrected. It was just the last radiance of the setting sun, and even after that attack, he had consumed the last of his blood and blood. However, everyone still felt extremely terrified. They realized that they'd underestimated these invincible overlords of the heavens and the earth. Even if it was already the final moment, and everyone thought that the outcome had been decided, they'd still been tricked by him. Many peak quasi-emperors died tragically, and even a famous emperor like the Warhawk Emperor died in his hands. The others didn't die, but they were seriously injured. This was just a counterattack before death. If he was at his peak, it was really hard to imagine how tyrannical he would be. Facing such an old monster, they couldn't let down their guard at all, not even once. However, everyone still breathed a sigh of relief. In any case, they still escaped a disaster, especially the other Sixth Realm Emperors, who felt like they had a new lease of life. If the target of the time Beast Emperor ancestor's last attack was not the Warhawk Emperor, but them, the consequences would be unimaginable. The ones who would die would be them. Countless thoughts flashed through the minds of many experts, but no one said anything. Everyone focused on frantically recovering from their injuries. In that wave of time power, just now, everyone was injured, and the emperors who weren't directly killed were all injured. Even the Sixth Realm Emperors were no exception, especially since they were the closest to the time Beast Emperor ancestor. So their injuries were also the most serious. And at this moment, a strange change occurred again. A figure swept past everyone and instantly flew towards the physical body of the time Beast Emperor ancestor. How dare you? Instantly, everyone was enraged, shocked, and angry, but this figure's speed was too fast, and they couldn't catch his movement at all. He had already leaped in front of the huge and withered physical body of the time Beast Emperor ancestor, courting death. Suddenly, the Lord of the Permethar roared, and his body exuded a terrifying aura. With a slight movement, heaven and earth and the universe were no longer stable and collapsed. His speed was also fast, and he directly chased after the figure, almost catching up with him in the blink of an eye. His eyes burst with unimaginable hatred, and he had already recognized this figure. It was actually Yi Shiwen. He originally thought that Yi Shiwen would obediently hide behind, but he didn't expect Yi Shiwen to make a move at this critical moment. New hatred added to old hatred, and he finally completely erupted. You, a Fifth Realm Emperor, actually dared to participate in this matter. You're really courting death. The Lord of the Permethar's eyes were incomparably cold. It seems that today is really the day you die. Get lost, don't bother me. Yi Shiwen roared loudly. But the Lord of the Permethar behind him was even more ferocious, and Yi Shiwen's tone was simply treating him like a passerby. Whoosh! His figure instantly chased after Yi Shiwen, and he directly attacked. His speed rose to the extreme, and every attack was destructive, with unimaginable matchless power. He was indeed a Sixth Realm super-existence, and he could still maintain a terrifying combat power in a situation where he was seriously injured. Courting death, Yi Shiwen saw that he couldn't get rid of the Lord of the Permitha, so he immediately turned around and blasted a punch at the Lord of the Permitha. Boom! The speed of both sides was extremely fast, and they instantly collided. Chapter 3106. Boom! Both sides collided with each other. The collision of both sides surpassed the speed of light. Time was instantly disrupted, and the entire space collapsed. Rumble! It was accompanied by endless explosions. Puff! However, what everyone didn't expect was that in this rapid and explosive collision, the first person who couldn't hold on was actually the Nirvana Lord. The Nirvana Lord spurted out a mouthful of blood. The injuries that he had forcibly suppressed were directly detonated under the impact of this collision. He couldn't suppress it even with his cultivation, and directly spurted out a mouthful of blood. Every drop of this blood seemed to be able to explode the world. Thump, thump, thump. The Nirvana Lord retreated a few steps and barely stabilized his body. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and his eyes were still filled with disbelief. It was as if he had seen a ghost. In the collision just now, he was completely at a disadvantage. For him, this was simply the most incredible miracle. One must know that the previous fight between him and Yi Shiwen wasn't hundreds or thousands of years. It was only a short time, and Yi Shiwen had actually improved to this stage. From the peak of the low martial realm, who could only protect himself in his hands, to the sixth realm, who could injure him with a single blow. You actually entered the sixth realm? How is this possible? The Nirvana Lord obviously didn't expect this. This was also completely beyond his normal common sense. Any Emperor Lord who wanted to break through a big realm couldn't do it in a short time. Even if they practiced in the safest place, it would still take a very long time to achieve it. How could Yi Shiwen do it? Moreover, he looked like a dragon rising and falling, and his attack was decisive. His martial power was terrifyingly profound. No matter how he looked at it, it didn't seem like he had just barely broken through. Suddenly, he thought of something. You used a time fragment? His mind seemed to have been cleared by a thunderbolt, and he suddenly became clear-headed. Not only did it require a large amount of accumulation to break through to the Emperor realm, it could also be said that he had accumulated enough foundation before. However, the time needed for this process could not be explained by the foundation. The only thing that could achieve this was the time fragment. This was the only way to forcefully accelerate the time around one's body, allowing one to pass thousands or even tens of thousands of times in a short period of time. He was a sovereign emperor of the sixth realm. His martial arts cultivation was terrifyingly profound. His martial arts knowledge was also extremely extensive. So, he instantly figured out the fundamental reason for Yi Shiwen's sudden increase in strength. However, even though the Nirvana Lord knew about it, he still had an incredulous look on his face. Although the time fragment had such a function, how many people were willing to use it? It was simply a reckless waste of God's gift. The function of the time fragment was not just that. If he cultivated according to the normal method, the benefits he could obtain would be far more than this. Moreover, looking at Yi Shiwen's cultivation, it was obvious that he had used more than one piece of time fragment. Perhaps he had used more than 2 or 3 pieces. Even if it wasn't hers, the Lord of the Nirvana Shore could only feel her heart bleeding at the thought of this. What a wastrel! How could the time fragment be so easily obtained? If it was that easy, there would be no need for everyone to gather here. Only the time fragments condensed on the time Beast Emperor's body could be used by them. This was simply using a heavenly treasure like it was trash. Moreover, this was just to race against time to break through to the sixth realm. What kind of wastrel was this? Her heart twitched at the thought of this. However, she didn't know that Yi Shiwen had done more than 1 or 2 squandering things in his life. If he had to bleed in pain every time, his heart would have twitched and died a long time ago. When everyone heard the Lord of the Nirvana Shore's words, they immediately understood the crux of the matter. After all, They were all existences of the sovereign emperor level. The worst of them was at the peak of the quasi-emperor level. Which one of them wasn't knowledgeable? Suddenly, they felt that it was ridiculous. Yishuin had wasted 2 or 3 pieces of time fragments just to race against time. That represented 2 or 3 time beast emperors. Perhaps this was the only place in the entire world that had a time beast emperor. After passing this village, there wouldn't be such a shop anymore. Everyone had the same feeling as the Lord of the Nirvana shore in their hearts. What a wastrel, what a wastrel. What a reckless waste of God's gift. You can tell. You do have some skills. Yishuin was also a little surprised. The Lord of the Nirvana shore's reaction was very fast. He reacted almost at lightning speed. However, even so, Yishuin's movements weren't slow at all. Before he finished speaking, the demon wings on his back suddenly spread open, and he attacked at superluminal speed. His attack even affected the timeline. One could clearly see that the timeline was in chaos. His speed was so fast that no one could see his figure at all. Bang! It was unknown when the martial emperor's seal had appeared in Yishuin's hand. In his hand, it seemed as if it had transformed into an ancient divine mountain, and it smashed down. How dare you? The Lord of the Nirvana shore was shocked and angry. Yishuin's aggressive attack clearly showed that he wasn't worthy of his attention. Yishuin intended to kill him while he was injured. His reaction was extremely fast, and he quickly dodged backward. However, it was too late. Yishuin's speed was faster than him, and it directly smashed into his right shoulder. The Lord of the Nirvana shore was directly hit by the martial emperor's seal, and half of his body was smashed. He couldn't defend himself at all. That kind of speed was shocking. The Lord of the Nirvana shore's entire body would have been smashed into a cloud of blood fog if he hadn't dodged at the critical moment. Yishuin's strength could be imagined. So fast. As a person involved in the situation, the Lord of the Nirvana shore could feel Yishuin's current strength and terror. One attack made him vomit blood and retreat, and the second attack made him seriously injured. Strong. Too strong. At this moment, in the eyes of everyone, Yishuin had truly displayed his extreme strength. Facing a powerful emperor, he didn't hold back at all, and he killed when he said he would kill. Once he became an enemy, he would instantly kill without hesitation or mercy. At this moment, everyone seemed to understand why this emperor of the independent cultivator dared to face a colossus like the heavenly Taoism. He indeed had such strength, and he also had such courage. At this critical moment, when everyone was seriously injured, Yishuin, who was a powerful sixth realm expert, wasn't affected at all. At the same time, he was very far away, and he decisively attacked. He didn't hesitate even in the face of everyone's angry gazes and encirclement. Yishuin didn't seem to have injured the Lord of the Nirvana shore with one attack. His entire body was glowing, and at the same time, he raised his martial power to the limit. Yishuin moved again. The 3,000 martial arts were blooming with terrifying rays of light around his body. That kind of terrifying power seemed to be able to crush the heaven and earth. It was as if a terrifying power was surging around him. The Lord of the Nirvana shore, was shocked and angry. Yishuin really wanted to kill him, but Yishuin still had the ability to do so. If he was at his peak, it would be hard to say. However, now that he was seriously injured, his combat power was far from his peak. If he was really targeted by Yishuin, the consequences would be unimaginable. Roar. However, at this moment, a few more terrifying auras soared and directly surrounded Yishuin. It was the Rain Emperor, the Sky-Shaking Turtle Emperor, and the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor. These 3 people were originally strong candidates for the time fragment in the body of the Time Beast Emperor. Now that another one appeared in front of them, how could they let Yishuin take the Time Beast Emperor away so easily? Human, you've crossed the line. The Gung Metal Tiger Emperor's voice was indifferent, and his expression was extremely cold. So all you want to stop me? Yishuin said coldly as he looked at these people. The 3 great supreme martial artists surrounded him at the same time, but Yishuin wasn't too worried. He had his own pride and confidence. That depends on whether you know what's good for you. Human, the Time Beast Emperor is a member of our outer realm. He is not fated with you. It's not too late to let go now. The sky-shaking Turtle Emperor said in a muffled voice. He had extraordinary defensive power, and when the Time Beast Emperor's power of time went berserk just now, the injuries he suffered were much lighter. The Rain Emperor also faintly blocked his path on the other side. Obviously, he was also unwilling to give up the fat meat in his hands. Even if he saw the miserable state of the Lord of the Nirvana Shore, he still wanted to fight for it. At this stage, if he gave up on them, wouldn't all his previous efforts be wasted? Then come me together. I want to see how much power you have at your peak now. Arrogant, the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor roared and instantly attacked. His malevolent face was full of anger. His fist directly burst out from the void. Although the speed of his fist wasn't as fast as the Lord of the Nirvana Shore's attack, his fist contained vast power and was another kind of supreme great Tao. Although the speed wasn't too fast, it was also difficult to dodge. Every Emperor Monarch had their own unique Tao, and they could finally become emperors by walking on their unique Tao to the peak. However, Yishuan didn't have any intention of dodging at this moment. Although he had just achieved great success and broke through to the 6th level, in terms of power, he was stronger than the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor and the others, and was only slightly inferior to the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor. Not to mention that the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor was also severely injured, so he was even more fearless and unrestrained. Come, take my fist, 6 Paths of Reincarnation Fist. A 6 Paths of Reincarnation fist appeared behind Yishuan, and instantly felt that all the creatures in the world were bound by the 6 Paths of Reincarnation. It controlled life and death, and all the creatures in the world didn't dare to disobey. Especially those Emperor-level creatures. They directly felt that death was approaching. Although they were strong, they still hadn't escaped from death. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.